will be led by no other than our minority floor leader, Congressman Bishop Benny Abante from Manila. Mr. Minority Floor Leader, please lead us in the prayer.
Apostle Paul said in his book in Philippians that we should not worry about anything, but putting everything in prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let our requests be made known unto God. Lord, we come before your throne today. Again, Father God, we so much need your mercy upon our country. We need your wisdom today as we tackle this crisis, dear Lord, this morning. I pray that to each of us, that your wisdom be upon all of us, that we could be able to craft proposals and suggestions that would be for the benefit of all our people. I pray, Lord, you would help us today, that you would give us grace and mercy in our own lives. For this we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Secretary General Darren and Rafi Garcia will be now singing the National Anthem for all of us. We may just put our right hands on our left breast and begin.
Go. Okay.
Bayang mag-ibig, pelas na silangan, alak ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay, lupang hiniran, tuyang ka ng mag-ibig, sa manlulupi, di ka pasisihin, sa nagkakatulog sa simuyan, sa langit ang buhaw, may nilagang awit sa paglayang minamahal, ang iskap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdirinig, ang bituin at araw-yang kailan, pamay din magdidinig, lupa ng araw ng buwan, at ang pagsinta, ay langit sa piling mo. Ang ligaya dapat ay mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Thank you very much for the rendition of the Lupang Hiniran, Rafi and company. Nice duet. Thank you. The next item of the agenda will actually be the introductory remarks of the speaker. For the time being, the speaker will not be able to join us, but he may join us later on at the latter part of the proceedings. So I shall begin with the opening address, and here we go. Mr. Honorable Speaker, esteemed members of this Peace and Order cluster of the Defeat COVID Ad Hoc Committee, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, today marks the fourth meeting of the Defeat COVID-19 Committee and the first meeting of the Peace and Order cluster, co-chaired by Representatives Narciso Bong Bravo, the chairperson of the Committee on Public Order and Safety, Representative Raul Buboy Tupas, chairperson of the Committee on National Defense and Security, and Representative Jesus Bong Suntay, chairperson of the Committee on Human Rights. Today, we will be discussing measures on the maintenance of public order and safety in our country during this very trying period. Indeed, we are faced with great challenges in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. This global problem poses a significant threat not only to public health, but also to the maintenance of our national peace and order and safety. We are aware that with the declaration of an extended community quarantine, a myriad of problems cropped up, such as massive loss of jobs, threatened resources of livelihood, impaired immobility of food supply, and dreadful sense of well-being. We also know that when people are hungry, frustrated, and angry, the potential for social unrest, violence, and confusion rises. This threat of social upheaval would greatly undermine our ability to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. We cannot allow hunger, frustration, and the hopelessness to reign among our people. This unprecedented global health emergency must be our sole motivation to employ measures that will ensure the safety, security, and protection of our citizens. We welcome and support the decision of the President to extend the enhanced community quarantine in critical areas. Kailangan pa rin ng lockdown para mapigil ang pagkalat ng COVID sa mga hot zones tulad ng Metro Manila. We also commend the President's decision to ease the lockdown in provinces categorized as low and medium risk areas. These localities will be the first to experience what they call the new normal in our daily activities. As representatives of our people, it is our duty to voice out the lingering concerns of our constituents in the ECQ and GCQ districts. We are gathered here today not only as members of the House of Representatives, but the collective voice of 110 million Filipinos scattered around the archipelago. The presentations of our Peace and Order Cluster are the product of the consultations made with more than 300 congressmen over this lengthy period of the COVID. Ang pag-usapan po natin ngayon ay hindi lamang ang ideya ni Kong Bravo, ni Kong Tupas, o ni Kong Suntay. Lahat ito is a collective effort and the position of the House of Representatives based on consultations with our people on the ground. Before we begin, let me extend our appreciation to the men and women in uniform who are frontliners in the maintenance of peace and order. Saludo po kami sa serbisyong pinakita ninyo. Dahil sa pagbabantay ninyo, mahimbing po ang tulong ng aming pamilya. Alam namin na sa bawat oras nakabantay kayo para sa aming kaligtasan. To spread the curve of COVID, our government enforced various forms of social distancing measures. After more than a month of the enhanced community quarantine, our countrymen are feeling the burdens of being required to stay at home over a prolonged period, such as the loss of livelihood and income and discontinued education and social activities. Local government units are mandated to strictly enforce the prohibition of mass gathering. Movement is regulated through the issuance of quarantine passes to authorized persons outside residences. All these are stringent measures and are taking a toll on our people. Naririnig natin ang reklamo ng mga tao tungkol dito. Alam din natin ang epekto nito sa kanilang kabuhayan. To our people's credit, majority have chosen to abide by the rules imposed by the government. Hindi pa totoo na walang disiplina ang mga Pilipino. Sumusunod po sila sa pila, sa batas. Of course, there are a few who are recalcitrant. Unfortunately, incidents involving these errant citizens are the ones hogging the limelight in traditional and social media. We have to keep appealing to these people to please stay at home and keep your families safe. We can only win this fight if we will take care of ourselves and be mindful of the welfare of others. Last April 21, 2020, the Philippine National Police, Chief Police General Archie Francisco Gamboa reported that a total of 136,517 enhanced community quarantine violators have been recorded for the past 35 days of ECQ. Of the total number of ECQ violators, 98,986 were warned by the authorities. 6,000 were fined and 31,000 were arrested. There were also 731 individuals arrested for hoarding and overpricing activities, while 9,418 public utility vehicles were apprehended. The PNP chief also ordered the deployment of the Special Action Force, composed of 12 teams with a total of 116 personnel, to assist the local police units in strategic locations in Metro Manila. Ladies and gentlemen, these measures are designed to preserve the peace and order and safety. But we need to do more, and we cannot allow our national healthcare system to be overwhelmed while coping with the non-committed economic and social costs. We need to pursue strategic directions to flatten the so-called epidemiological curve of COVID-19. Together, we can do more. That, my dear friends, is our mission in today's conference, to fine-tune the policy guidelines of our law enforcement agencies in order to save lives, and hopefully we can also identify if there are laws that need to be passed by Congress to institutionalize these policy reforms. Isa lang naman po ang gusto nating lahat, ang maligtas ng buhay ng kapwa Pilipino. Maraming salamat po. Pagpalain ang gabayan na hawa, tayo ang Panginoong lumikha. Maraming salamat. At this point, we would like to start off with the presentation of our reports, no? And we will start off by the presentation of the co-chairs of our DCC Peace and Order cluster. We'll start off with our chairperson, Congressman Bong Bravo, who is the representative of the 1st District of Masbate and is the incumbent chairperson of the Committee on Public Order and Safety. He is a civil engineer by profession. He served as the provincial board member of Masbate for 3 terms, from 1995 to 2004. In 2013, he was elected as mayor of the municipality of San Fernando, Masbate. As chairperson of the Committee on Public Order and Safety, he advocated for the modernization of the Bureau of Fire Protection and the PNP and the amendments to the Human Security Act of 2007. Kong Bravo will present the findings and recommendations of the Peace and Order Cluster of the Defeat COVID Special Committee, particularly on the implementation on the stay-at-home policy, social distancing measures, and issues relating to the delivery of basic and essential foods nationwide. Mr. Chairman, Chairman Bong Bravo, you have the floor.
Chairman, our Majority Leader, Martin Romualdez, the Minority Leader, Congressman Benny Abante, our Deputy Speaker, Ferdinand Hernandez, my partner, my co-chairperson, Congressman Buboy Tupas, the Chairman of the Committee on Human Rights, Congressman Bong Suntay, honorable colleagues in the House of Representatives, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. A pleasant morning also to our invited guest, the DILG Secretary, Secretary Ed Anyo, sa atin pong Chief Implementer of the National Action Plan Against COVID-19, Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr., our PNP Chief, Police General Attorney Archie Gamboa, at sa atin pong mga mahal na kababayan na nanonood ngayon sa live stream, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Mr. Chairman, ako po at ang aking partner, si Chairman Buboy Tupas, ay nagkasundo na maghahati po kami, hating kapatid, dito po sa paglalahad ng ulat ng Peace and Order Cluster. Sa kanya po yung mahirap na parte at sa akin lang po yung madali. Mr. Chairman, my report will discuss the various challenges of implementing community quarantine measures, both under the ECQ and GCQ status. And also, I'm going to present the proposed recommendations of our cluster. This includes the report of the TWG composed of the members of the Committee on Public Order and Safety and the officials and officers of the DILG, PNP, BJMP, and BFP. At the outset, I wish to stress that maintaining peace and order is very vital to the success of our fight against COVID-19. The role of our law enforcement agencies and uniformed personnel is indispensable. We need them in partnership with our health frontliners to carry out the various health policies and protocols. We need them to protect our lead agencies in the distribution of our social amelioration programs. In the performance of these functions, they put themselves in danger not only of being infected with the deadly virus, but also of being killed by the enemies of the state who take advantage of these most difficult times in our nation's history. The Filipino people owes you a deep sense of gratitude. However, I would like to politely remind all our uniformed personnel to observe maximum tolerance towards minor infractions committed by the ordinary Juan de la Cruz for your errors in judgment may cost lives of our poor kababayan. Atin din pong pinakikiusapan ang buong sambayanan na sumunod sa mga alituntuning pinatutupad ng ating pamahalaan. Igalang at sundin ang kung maaari isuportahan ng ating mga otoridad na 24/7 na nakababad sa lansangan, nagsitiis sa init at alinsangan ng sikat ng araw. Sa madaling salita po, bawal po ngayon ang mga pasaway. Mr. Chairman, we would like to present our brief PowerPoint presentation.
Please go ahead.
Next slide, please. Before that, the presidential declaration, please. Before that. Anyway, last Friday, President Duterte declared the extension of the ECQ until May 15 of 2020 in the National Capital Region, in Central Luzon, Calabar Zone, and other areas identified as high risk in the spread of COVID-19. For other areas identified as low and moderate risk, the President declared that this will be under General Community Quarantine or GCQ starting May 1, 2020. There is a comparative guidelines for both ECQ and GCQ. Number one, under ECQ, stringent quarantine measures has to be implemented until May 15th of 2020. While under the General Community Quarantine, relaxed quarantine measures are going to be implemented starting on May 1, 2020 in areas identified as low and moderate risk in the spread of COVID-19. Number two, under ECQ, public transportation systems are suspended. While under the General Community Quarantine, public transport is allowed but in reduced capacity. Number three, under ECQ is only essential businesses and services are allowed to operate, while under the GCQ, 50 to 100% reopening of select establishments subject to minimum health standards. Number four, subject to further evaluation before transitioning under ECQ, it will be subject for evaluation before transition to GCQ. While in GCQ, after May 16, it will be also evaluated. If there will be no further deterioration on the COVID case status, then GCQ will be relaxed for normalization. So as it is right now, it is very difficult already to enforce stringent ECQ measures. So the issue is how much more under the relaxed quarantine measures of the GCQ areas. So to avoid confusion, we hope that the IATF will issue the protocols in enforcing these guidelines and the GCQ areas, especially now that the public transport will be allowed and construction activities will be resumed. Next slide, please. The peace in order cluster identified three major issues in implementing the ECQ, which are also important in GCQ areas. Number one is the social physical distancing. I think we are all in agreement that social distancing is mandatory, whether ECQ or GCQ, until a vaccine is already discovered and administered effectively. So number 2 issue, major concern, is the stay-at-home policy. Yun yata po pinakamahirap na i-implement. And then number 3, major issue that we have extensively discussed is the delivery of basic and essential goods nationwide. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, for the social distancing. Well, under the number 1 major issue, the social distancing. Social distancing, okay, thank you, is a problem, especially in markets, groceries, pharmacies rather, and the banks. Law enforcers have to contend not only with overcrowding in these public places, but also the long lines of people that extend outside the buildings. So number 2, the congestion in our jail facilities also poses a serious challenge to the health and protection of both the PDLs and the jail personnel. So number 3, furthermore, the lack of uniform and coordinated response from the LGUs undermines the national strategy to defeat COVID-19. The number 4 challenge is that social distancing is not really recognized by our culture, the Filipino culture. For many people, it's not even an option given the extended families of most Filipinos. And also in poor areas, the congested dwellings of informal settlers with multiple families in one house makes it very difficult, or if not impossible, to enforce physical distancing. So even with GCQ, this will still be a big problem. How can we effectively monitor or prevent people from, mingling with each other, especially when business will start already and transport systems will resume? Hindi po natin talaga mapipigilan na yung mga tao lalabas at lalabas, paghahanap buhay. Paano na lang po natin ma-observe yung social distancing? Like for instance, sa isang tricycle, pwede ba yung dalawang pasahero na uupo magkatabi? Or isang pasahero lang yung papayagan nating sumakay? Sa jeepneys natin, baka umangal din po yung mga jeepney drivers and operators na kung halimbawa kalahati lang yung papayagan natin makasakay doon sa jeepney, paano na lang po, babiyahe sila kung lugi. So I think that we have to address this problem. Like for example, there is a suggestion that the government provides subsidies to the drivers or to increase the fares, but I think that would pose another problem. So next slide, please. Anyway, let me go back to the issues on, like, in public transportation. If under ECQ, it is already very difficult to observe or to implement social distancing. What about under GCQ, where more people are already allowed to go outside of their houses? So hindi na po mapipigilan. So mas lalong mahihirapan po tayo ma-implement yung social distancing under GCQ. So ito po yung mga issues, like yung mga tao magkukumpul-kumpul sa mga trabaho, like for example yung construction activities and other allowed industries. So next slide, please. Now our recommendations, the cluster came up with several recommendations. Number 1 is to institute stronger measures to compel adherence to the IATF guidelines on social distancing. to cite and fine all persons traveling without any justifiable reason or any mode of transport. So kailangan maging mas stricto po tayo. In other countries like Singapore, they have a maximum imprisonment penalty of 6 months, and in Vietnam, I think it's 3 years. So, number 2, to encourage all public markets or talipapa to put in place systems so that they can manage the crowds and maintain the hygiene and safety. Also, if possible, the social distancing. Number 3, the government must deploy additional law enforcers in critical areas or hot zones. And to number 4, we note that the Office of the Court Administration has issued already a circular on temporary release of qualified PDLs. We respectfully recommend that the Supreme Court shorten or streamline the process for petitions covered by the said circular. So next slide, please. The second major issue is the social stay-at-home policy. This is the most difficult challenge to our peace and order situation, to require people to stay at home. The government issued and implemented the guidelines on the APOR, or the authorized persons outside of residence. This is complicated by the fact that the issuance of quarantine pass is at the discretion of LGUs, and some issue more than 1 pass per household. Some LGUs also enforce hard lockdown or extreme ECQ, and while some are too lenient. Hindi po talaga nagkakatugma minsan. Second, yung paglabag sa guidelines and resisting arrest. I think there are already incidents. One of this is the latest shooting incident of the retired Philippine Army officer. I think Officer Ragos. Yun naman po sa tingin ko talagang napakahirap na pasundin. So nagkaroon po ng problema at nagresulta ng karahasan. So number 3, may stay-at-home policy, yet there are still violations. Like for example, nagsasabong pa rin at saka naglalabag dun sa liquor ban. In violation of Republic Act, also Republic Act 9165 or the Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002. So yung pang-apat po natin na challenge, there are also different perspectives on the part of the enforcement of the policies. Sometimes there is a view that violators are pasaway, but perhaps these people might have urgent concerns such as food or health needs, and it is really very important to ensure that food is available, health services are accessible for the maintenance of peace and order. Hunger makes a man desperate. Under GCQ, I think that the challenge also is on how to monitor both the unauthorized persons to go out and those who will go out of their residence for whatever reason. The next slide, please. The recommendations of the cluster is that number 1, the government must impose fines on all persons who are outside of residence without any justifiable reason. Sa mga hindi po nakakapagbayad, maaari naman po silang bigyan ng iba pang disciplinary sanctions. Gaya po ng community service, kung halimbawa pwede pong mangyari yun. The LGUs must modify the ECQ pass given to each household to limit the number of people and vehicles on the road, maybe by indicating a specific day or days on the pass, or exercise or practice yung color coding natin na ginagawa sa EDSA minsan to address the traffic. But we have to consider also exemptions for emergency cases. Number 2 recommendation is a strong this is a strong deterrent where recidivist violators should be disqualified already from receiving further government aid such as the cash assistance program. Ito rin po yata yung gustong mangyari at nire-recommenda ng Pangulo, yung mga pasaway wag na pong bigyan ng mga assistance ng ating pamahalaan. Number 3, despite the GCQ, LGUs must impose curfew on all barangays. Always remind residents that curfew violations will be penalized and steeper penalties will be imposed. Yung pang-apat pong ating challenge dito, recommendation dito, that the LGUs, with the help of our law enforcement, should continue to monitor major thoroughfares and strengthen checkpoints to ensure that motorists are really observing ECQ and GCQ protocols. With respect to the number 5 recommendation is that to ensure respect for people's rights and dignity, incidents of maltreatment of violators must be investigated and that appropriate complaint may be filed. The oversight and accountability measures and uniform guidelines must be established. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. We come now to the third major issue that the cluster have extensively discussed, and this is the delivery of essential goods, the unhampered delivery of basic and essential goods nationwide. So despite the lifting of the ECQ in certain areas, we still anticipate many challenges in ensuring the unhampered delivery of basic and essential goods nationwide. Foremost is the insistence of some LCEs to implement their own excessive border restrictions and other regulations not aligned with national guidelines. We have observed in the past few months during the ECQ period, wherein like for instance in my province, truck drivers in the province of Masbate, truck drivers are not allowed to enter our ports, which is contrary to the national guidelines. But we cannot also blame some of the LCEs for being overprotective, and because they have also the power given to them, they have the autonomy. But I would like also to suggest that we have to strike the balance. Nauubos na po talaga yung stocks ng mga essential goods sa probinsya. Like for instance, ganun din po yung nangyari in the first district of Quezon, where five island municipalities have run out of essential goods. And even if the people will receive cash assistance from the government, paano naman po kung walang mabili? So they still have to go to the mainland, be able to buy their necessities. We have observed that many LGU officials prohibited the movement of all types of cargos and the cargo personnel through the borders of their LGUs. That's why. So however, we all understand that if the local chief executives are too relaxed, it may compromise also the LGU's containment efforts. So the next slide, please. Here are our recommendations. Number 1, the government must streamline policies on inter-island movement of cargo to continue to ensure the supply of essential goods and medicines. Dapat wala na pong masyadong restrictions. I am just citing as an example the province of Sorsogon. Kasi the province of Sorsogon until now is COVID-free. But on a daily basis, minuto, dumadaan po yung mga delivery trucks galing sa iba't ibang area sa Luzon, papunta po sa Visayas in Mindanao. But still, kahit na nandun, kasama naman yung mga drivers and the personnel, COVID-free pa rin sila. Meaning, siguro kailangan pag-aralan din kung paano medyo mapaluwag-luwag natin ng konti para mas mabilis.
Hello, Sec Chen? Darren?
Medyo parang nawala ata si
Yes,
Kongbong.
sir.
Nawala siyang signal?
I think it's reconnecting, sir.
Okay. We'll ask him maybe just to wind up also, di ba? Kung ano.
Yes, sir.
I think he's about to finish medyo kasi recommendations yung sa kanya eh.
Yeah, but which one is this? Kasi there are several sets of recoms based on the portions.
I think sa cluster niya, pero I'm not sure if he's about to finish kasi kahapon, during our practice, medyo this is the last part na eh.
Sir,
Okay.
after this, there are 2 more slides, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, but pero all of them are recommendations na lang, no?
Opo.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we cannot get him on, we'll proceed na lang to co-chair Buboy Tupas, no?
Or co-chair Boboy Tupas can take over the presentation.
Continue
Okay.
and finish the recommendations.
Okay. Since our chair, Bong Bravo, is having some technical difficulties, we would like to introduce Congressman Raul Buboy Tupas, no? As the representative of the 5th District of Iloilo and currently serving on his 2nd term. He's graduated from the PMA in 1994 and later served in the Special Forces Regiment of the Philippine Army. In 2001, he ran and was elected mayor of Barota Viejo in Iloilo province and served as such for 3 consecutive terms. He was later on elected as vice governor of the province. During the 17th Congress, Kong Tupas served as vice chairperson of the Committee on Public Order and Security and of the Committee on Aquaculture and Fisheries Resources. He's currently the chairperson of the Committee on National Defense and Security. He will report on the findings and the recommendations of the Peace and Order Response Cluster to the implications of the pandemic on peace and order and national security, the current condition of jails and detention centers, psychosocial effects of mitigation measures on the populace, and the challenges to the law enforcement establishments in terms of staffing and affording them adequate protection while serving in the front lines. Co-chair, Congressman Raul Buboy Tupas, you have the floor.
Maraming salamat po, Majority Floor Leader Martin. To my cluster co-chair, Kongbong Bravo, Chairman Bong Suntay, Minority Leader Benny Abante, other distinguished members of the House, as well as our resource persons po sa ating lahat. Magandang umaga. Ang amin pong presentation will focus on the strategic risk considerations and mitigation measures. Sa ngayon po, marami ng measures that have already been in place, and to that we recognize and appreciate the timely and decisive actions undertaken by the national government, such as the creation of the Interagency Task Force and subsequently the declaration of ECQ last March. The members of our committee and cluster believe that the situation is quite fluid and that the governments all over the world are in the process of developing fully effective approach while waiting for the vaccine. This presentation will tackle to a certain extent magnitude of the virus and its implications on national security, peace and order. Katatapos lang po mag-present thoroughly ni Cluster Co-Chair Bong Bravo at tinakal niya po ang operational details ng role and trabaho po ng cluster ng peace and order. Considering the far-reaching effects of COVID-19 to everyone's welfare and way of life, I will briefly delve on the health, psychosocial, and socioeconomic aspects of the crisis, which are all interconnected to our national stability and safety. This pandemic has not only threatened but has already wreaked havoc to our health and economy in general. At the end of my short presentation, I will be posting some questions po or points for clarification to our resource person. Pag pinag-usapan po ang health contagion, dito lang po nakafocus on flattening the curve and the overarching demand for a vaccine. Pag pumasok naman tayo sa psychosocial effect, nakasentro po ito on embracing the new normal as well as the proper and deliberate dissemination of accurate information to reassure the public of the current efforts po ng ating gobyerno. Pagdating naman sa socio-economic impact, we just cannot discount the importance po ng economic stimulus para po ma-address ang looming economic upheaval felt by everybody. And to the national security, peace and order implications, as I stated earlier, the three other risk considerations will directly have an impact on our cluster's main concern as we endeavor to address this to avoid irreversible breakdown of discipline and order, which would result probably to chaos. And as shown po sa slide, regions across the country vary in the risk of viral contamination. Of the total infected and confirmed COVID figures, about 95% po are in Luzon with concentration in Metro Manila, 3% in the Visayas with Cebu having the most, and 2% in Mindanao with Davao topping the list. Due to this pandemic, ang mga tao po ay they tend to feel fearful and uncertain about their safety and future. From a very busy lifestyle with opportunities, many are now fending for themselves and totally dependent po sa mga LGUs and national government agencies. Dito po sa graph, pinapakita lang that the state has to strike a delicate balance between community health measures versus economic concerns. As the country is focused on the fight against COVID, the military po is performing functions beyond its major roles. And it is in this line, in the past few weeks, the resurgence of terror-related encounters with Abu Sayyaf group, na nangyari po sa Patikul Sulu, and with the NPA in the countryside have resulted to unnecessary loss of lives of our operating troops, lalong-lalo po ang galing po sa Philippine Army dahil po etong nangyari sa COVID. Atin pong nagbibigay po tayo ng pagpugay sa kagitingan at katapatan sa katungkulan ng ating kasundaluhan at kapulisan, kabilang na po ang mga miyembro ng uniformed services such as but not limited to Bureau of Fire Protection, Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, Philippine Coast Guard, as well as service and voluntary responders. Gusto rin po ng committee at cluster namin na parangalan ang mga LGU frontliners, kabilang na ang mga medical staff, elected municipal and barangay officials, BHWs, BSPOs, BNS, daycare teachers, at mga tanod, lalong-lalo na rin po ang ating counterpart from the private sector. Dito po sa slide na to, pinapakita lang na nobody is immune. We must realize that our frontliners are in harm's way day in, day out po. At meron pong figure na dyan galing sa military at galing sa police. Kung ilan na po ang apektado, ilan ang confirmed, ilan ang probable, tsaka ilan ang suspected po. Pagdating naman po sa implications to national security and peace and order, there have been increased utilization of AFP, air, naval, and ground mobility assets to address the need for more modes of transport in delivering medical treatment and health safety supplies and equipments, as well as transport medical personnel and other frontliners. Pagdating naman po sa risk mitigation on public health, These measures have been thoroughly discussed by other resource persons during the Health Cluster Ad Hoc meeting, wherein a number of former cabinet members, cabinet secretaries ng health po ay nag-participate to come up with the recommendations on policies and guidelines. Ito po sa slide na to, binibigyan natin ng pansin pagdating sa psychosocial effects na ang strategic communication must be orchestrated by the government at the national, LGU, and operational level. Kana po natin ngayon to. At pagdating po sa maintaining ng situational awareness, it just means dispensing transparent, up-to-date, and relevant information. While sa public health messaging naman po ay ang promotion of positive messages and pag-reassure sa public na medyo takot po at may uncertainty pagdating po sa nangyayari ngayon. Gusto rin natin paalam na ang strategic communication is very important. People tend to follow the daily coordinated briefings of DOH, AITF, pati na po sa Malacanang, and even a number of press con and meetings presided by the President, where the viewing public is reassured of an orchestrated, deliberate, and clear direction of the government as a whole. Dito po sa risk mitigation on socio-economic impact, kailangan lang po palagi ang poor and unemployed should be continue to benefit, as well as ang middle class po, dahil sa bayanihan we heal as one act, at dahil sa pag-downgrade po to GCQ sa mga low and moderate areas, ito po ang tutulong din sa national government para maisda ng burden sa obligasyon. Since the President has decided on how to move the nation forward with the latest pronouncement on ECQ extension and downgrading, we expect po additional mobilization of military forces as augmentation, peacekeeping, and force multiplier po in some hotspots to strictly enforce regulations and ordinances along with PNP and LGU personnel. Marami po, may panindigan po ang DND mula kay Secretary Ronsana that the AFP is more than ready to deploy troops to help enforce discipline and order should some of our countrymen continue to defy the enhanced community quarantine rules. Moving forward, I will now be enumerating 4 specific recommendations championed by majority of our cluster for the kind consideration of the House leadership and the appropriate action po by our partners in the executive branch. Number 1 po, the fast tracking of the national ID implementation, which is on top of our mind, as a tool for proper and efficient data banking. Had the system been in place, this could have greatly complemented the rollout of the social amelioration measures. Pangalawa po, food security and self-sufficiency is of utmost importance to help strengthen the backbone of the economy in the countryside. I'm referring to po sa mga ating magsasaka, dahil ang inefficient and effective agricultural undertaking is equated to good governance because the impact on the local economy, which is felt and seen at the household level. Meron pong kasabihan, a hungry man is an angry one, which is a reminder for all of us that food security is synonymous to national stability. Pangatlo po, na-mention na ni Co-Chair, Congressman Bravo, na ang temporary po liberty ng low-level, first-time, non-violent offenders, pati na po ang sick and elderly, to decongest jails and correctional facilities. And last but not the least po, ang possible recruitment from the service in the medical field sa AFP dahil po ang military na taasan to manage the newly developed isolation areas dito po sa Metro Manila, katulad po ng PICC, World Trade Center at yung Rizal Sports Complex. I will now sa mga points for clarification. Ito po, una for DILG. Dahil po ang observation natin for the past few weeks naging LGU-centric yung strategy po. Ang tanong po natin kung paano ito i-cascade to the governors and mayors yung national strategy. Pangalawa po, some LGUs have much bigger resources compared to others, while some have had to wait for the assistance from the national government. Do we have metrics po to monitor and evaluate the implementation of strategies? And what are the interventions of the DALG to lessen the disparities in order to empower less prepared LGUs such as those in the countryside? Isa rin po yung from COVID strategies ng LGUs. Alam natin may mga best practices na nag-emerge, and how are these being shared with other LGUs? At ang isa po ang kami mention lang po natin. Next po, for PNP, considering the crucial role of the PNP in maintaining public order and safety in the midst po ng panahon ngayon, lalo na pag pinasok natin yung psychosocial na implication, may I be allowed to cite the Corporal Ragos incident? What happened to Corporal Ragos was an unfortunate yet avoidable death. This incident has in fact raised awareness and concern po on the plight of the soldiers suffering from mental health disorders. The Commanding General of the Philippine Army has requested for an impartial investigation in view of the apparent conflicting claims of police operatives involved, witness accounts, and materials available from open sources to include footages of the incident. And as of today po, may mga ibang gray areas din na nagtatalo ang members of the community and ang atin pong kapulisan. How then can we continue to reassure our citizens, the people we serve, that we give utmost importance and uphold the motto to protect and to serve? I would like to find out from our Chief PNP, kay Sir Archie, the measures that have been put in place to prevent a repeat of this unnecessary loss of life. And lastly po, for IATF, given the hierarchy of command, are we as fast and agile, strategy and implementation-wise, as the enemy we are trying to defeat, considering that our LGUs and LCEs all have different capacities and capabilities as well as support system galing po sa private sector? And pangalawa pong tanong, what are the quarantine guidelines and procedures for OFWs who are stranded in Metro Manila and other provinces and returning to their home province po, pabalik na sila, because it appears that some provincial, city, and municipal LGUs have crafted their own guidelines in accepting or returning OFWs. Yan po ang presentation ng Committee on Defense as well as ng cluster po on Peace and Order, and kasama po si Cluster Chair, Co-Cluster Chair Kong Bravo. Kami po ay nagpapasalamat sa inyong panahon, as we know you are all very busy. Nagagalak po kami as your partners to help in any way we can. We appreciate and commend all your efforts to contain and address this horrible virus that has affected all of us in so many ways. Ulitin po, maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat, Chairman Buboy Tupas. We cannot have the Peace and Order Cluster just report without also our co-chair, our chair for the Human Rights Committee, Congressman Bong Suntay, sharing, because we can have both the human rights and the peace and order issues co-joined. Congressman Bong Suntay, the chair of the Human Rights Committee, is a lawyer by profession who earned his Bachelor of Laws degree from San Beda College of Law, a successful businessman and an accomplished political leader who served Quezon City as a councilor for 5 terms. After his term as city councilor, he became a member of the board of directors of the Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office, and not long after, he ran for a seat in the House of Representatives and was elected as congressman for the 4th Congressional District in Quezon City for this Congress. He's the chairperson of the Committee on Human Rights and the vice chairperson of the Committees on Energy, government enterprises and privatization and trade and industry, and a regular member of several major committees in the House of Representatives. Chairman Bong Suntay, Chairman of the Human Rights Committee, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Majority Leader Martin Romualdez. Magandang umaga sa iyo. I'm not sure kung nakikita nyo yung PowerPoint presentation ko.
We see it, we see it.
Yes, thank you. Of course, Chairman May Tocayo, Chairman Bong Bravo, Chairman Buboy Tupas, to our minority floor leader, Congressman Benny Abante, DS Dinan, sa ating mga kasamaan sa Kongreso, and of course, sa ating mga resource persons, Secretary Anyo, PNP Chief Archie Gamboa, General Carlito Galvez at General Eliazar at iba pa natin mga kasamaan. I'd like to present an overview of our human rights situation during the ECQ implementation. Now, as we all know, we are facing an invisible enemy. So vicious that it has claimed the lives of approximately 191,167 people across 6 continents. The growth of COVID-19 has an exponential growth of infection, rapidly affecting 2,739,948 of global population. Dito po sa atin, ang ating Pangulo in his action to try to stop the spread of the infection has implemented the enhanced community quarantine. In fact, last April 30, areas like the National Capital Region, Regions 3, 4A, and other areas, the ECQ was suspended, while other provinces have been put in general community quarantine. As chairperson of the House Committee on Human Rights, it is the firm position of our committee that human rights are universal, interrelated, and indivisible, equal and non-discriminatory, either during normal times or during states of emergency. As the government continues to grapple with this pandemic, a balancing act of fulfilling its human rights obligation as duty bearer to serve and protect the people, maintain peace and order, and promote general welfare is a serious challenge to contend with. In fact, nararamdaman na natin yung epekto ngayon ng implementation ng ECQ in various quarters, because in areas, people are already feeling uneasy dahil sa implementation ng ECQ. I have gone over the measures of our government which it has put in place to mitigate the impact on the people's economic and social rights. In doing so, I have used the guidance from the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. According to Michelle Bachelet, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, while emergency measures are needed to respond to the public health emergency, such a situation is not a blanket check to disregard human rights obligation. It is essential that governments undertake a range of additional actions to reduce the potentially negative impact such measures may have on the people's lives. Lockdowns, quarantines, and other such measures to contain and combat the spread of COVID-19 should always be carried out strictly in accordance with human rights standards and in a way that is necessary and proportionate to the evaluated risk. More particularly, it has to protect the most vulnerable and neglected people in society, both medically and economically. Staying off work in order to self-isolate may result in lost pay or lost job. In fact, madami sa ating mga kababayan ang nararanasan na ito at ngayon ay umaangal na. Healthcare for people with chronic or serious conditions may be impeded by the response to the outbreak. In some hospitals, most of our hospitals are now concerned or overwhelmed in trying to combat the COVID-19 infection. But of course, this does not do away with the fact na madami rin tayong kababayan ang may mga ibang sakit na kailangan rin bigyan ng atensyon. 3, disruption to trade and travel is likely to have a big impact, especially on small and medium-sized businesses and people they employ and serve. Ito, ngayon alam natin lahat, marami nang umaangal, madaming na mga kumpanya are, of course, complaining and are on the brink of bankruptcy. Marami rin mga tao o mga empleyado dito ang ngayon ay hindi na nakakakuha ng sweldo. And lastly, government needs to ensure all relevant information reaches everyone without exception. Now, the need to ensure all relevant information reaches everyone without exception, including in readily understandable format and languages adapted for people with specific needs, being open and transparent is key to empowering people to participate in the measures designed to protect their own health and helps to counter false and misleading information that can do harm by fueling fear and prejudice. Napaka-importante ho na may paliwanag natin sa ating mga mamamayan kung bakit natin ginagawa ang mga ginagawa ngayon. At para na rin maintindihan nila kung bakit ito ay dapat ma-implement at para sa kanilang kapakanan. Ang kagandahan naman po, tinignan ko yung recent Gallup International Survey with regards to the effect of various measures being implemented by various countries. Doon sa survey questions, it pertained on the fear of catching the virus. A lot of people are aware of this possibility and are now scared of catching the virus. That's why they are willing to obey yung mga measures being undertaken by the government. They all agree that it has a serious impact on our economic life. And people also agree that there is a strong role played by democracy in this crisis. People in India, particularly 91%, agree that their government is handling the situation well. Malaysia, 91%, Australia, 86%, dito sa Pilipinas, from 70%, 80% na ng ating mga mamamayan ang satisfied with the way that the government is handling the crisis. And lastly, on its effect on human rights. A majority of the population of the countries surveyed have stayed supportive of their government in the fight against the disease and are ready to sacrifice specific rights. In March, 75% of the population surveyed were willing to sacrifice their human rights until the threat of COVID-19 has gone. And this number has gone up to 80%. But nais natin, of course, we want to stress to our mga kapatid natin sa kapulisan and the armed forces na hindi porket yung mga mamamayan natin ay willing to sacrifice a portion of their human rights, eh hindi na natin bibigyan ng kaukulang pagtuon ang implementasyon natin, yung proper implementation of the measures that we are undertaking. Now, what are the government's plan to defeat COVID-19 and how human rights-based approach has been adopted? Let me go to specific measures that our government has done to put in place and mitigate the effects of the measures which we are undertaking. First, Congress approved the Bayanihan to Heal As One Act and the whole of government approach. RA 11, 11469 was signed into law last March 25, granting certain special powers to the President to address the outbreak of COVID-19. More particularly, Congress granted the President the power to use savings in our national budget to be used for social amelioration and to be used to support the medical needs of our medical frontliners. By providing emergency assistance to the most vulnerable and neglected people in our society, said act gave our president the authority to give 18 million low-income families 5,000 to 8,000 a month in emergency cash aid, depending on the prevailing minimum wage in the regions for 2 months. Ang nakita ko lang ho na naging problema nito, dahil bagamat mukhang malaki ang perang na-allocate natin, ito ay lubhang kulang para mabigyan lahat ng nangangailangan. May mga sektor ang nagsasabi, para dun sa mga nakakuha ng 8,000 a month for 2 months, baka pwede raw hatiin to na gawing 4,000 na lang para madoble yung beneficiary. I hope that it is something that which the implementers could consider. Dahil pag titignan nga natin, kagaya for example, in Quezon City, only 377,000 beneficiaries could avail of such assistance. Kung gagawin ho ang makukuha from 8,000 ang per individual, gawin na lang 4,000, then madodoble ho yung possible beneficiary. Imbis na iilang tao lang ang makakakuha o makikinabang dito. About 3,721,000 of the 4.4 million target 4Ps beneficiaries were given emergency subsidies. For non-4Ps beneficiary naman po, gaya ng TNBS sector, PUV, they received subsidies amounting to 323,344,000. The Department of Agriculture utilized 1.5 billion for its target farmer beneficiaries under the Rice Farmers Financial Assistance Program, some 18,495 out of the 591,246 target beneficiaries have received a total amount of 92.48 billion. Ang Department of Labor and Employment naman po aided 46% of its 118,000 target worker beneficiaries from the informal sectors, amounting to 206 million, and 840 million for some 167,941 workers under the count. Now, dito sa ating government's action plan to defeat COVID-19, using how human rights-based approach had been adopted. As I said, Bayanihan to Hilas 1 Act and the whole of government approach was used. The different LGUs have initially distributed food packs in their localities. Bagamat madami ang umaangal na hindi pa rin sila nakakakuha o hindi nakakatanggap. But we have to understand the difficulties being faced by our LGUs and the barangays because of the limited logistics and financial capabilities of some of our LGUs and barangays. The Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Disease for the effective management and control of COVID-19 human rights standards of participatory decision-making and inclusiveness has also been implemented. Now, ano ang epekto ng enhanced community quarantine with regards to freedom of movement? As we all know, we have restricted the movement of our people in order to mitigate the spread of the disease. Now, under the Philippine Constitution, Section 6 of the Bill of Rights of our Constitution provides that the right to travel cannot be impaired except in the interest of national security, public safety, or public health, as may be provided by law. Here, the Constitution recognizes that the inherent right of a person to life and to health takes precedence over certain social rights. Now, ito yung ginagamit natin in order to justify the implementation of the ECQ. But as I mentioned, dahil sa implementation ng ECQ, there are also various reports na nakukuha natin with regards to the proper implementation or handling by our uniformed personnel. Nabanggit ni Chairman Bravo kanina yung incident kay Army Corporal Winston Ramos who was shot. Just yesterday, there was also a video which was placed on social media with regards to a resident of Tasmarinas Village. Pero nung nakita natin yung kabuuan ng video, nakita natin kung ano yung naging dahilan nung ating kapatid sa kapulisan kung bakit na gano'n ang kanilang reaksyon. Now it is of course necessary, and I would like to remind yung ating mga kay Secretary Anyo at ating PNP Chief na kailangan pa rin natin talagang mapagsabihan at may paalam sa ating mga kapulisan kung paano ang proper implementation ng kanilang tungkulin so that naiiwasan natin yung mga insidente na maaaring pagmulan ng hindi pagkakaintindihan. Now, with regards to the right to health of the people and the government's plan on giving health access or access to healthcare facilities, social benefits, and social services of COVID patients, protection of healthcare workers and government frontliners. Dito, hindi rin mo nakalimutan ng gobyerno na maglagay ng provisions. Patients confined as probable or confirmed cases can avail of benefit packages ranging from 43,997 to 143,266. For those with mild to moderate pneumonia confined in level 1 to 3 hospitals, and 333,519 to 786,384 for patients with severe to critical pneumonia confined to level 2 and 3 hospitals, including ICUs. But, gaya ng nabanggit ko rin kanina, yung ating current allocation, of course, would not be enough in order to provide for everyone which are in need. Our government, national government, has also in trying to address the needs and of our medical frontliners. We have also we have in fact stepped up in the procurement of needed PPE by our health personnels. Sa kasalukuyan, I believe 1 million sets of PPE worth 1.8 billion have been approved and facilitated by the DBM. Now, we have also the Bayanihan Act also authorized the President to direct the operations of any privately owned hospitals, medical and health facilities. But may I remind that this should be used sparingly and only as a last resort. Sa kasalukuyan, the private medical facilities are working hand in hand with the national governments in order to provide the needed medical assistance to our countrymen. Kaya I do not see any need na gamitin at this moment, na gamitin ng ating Pangulo ang kapangyarihan na ibigay sa kanya to take over those facilities. With regards to community quarantine facilities, ito yung kailangan din paghandaan para mapanatili ang kalusugan ng mga tao. Later on, there will be an influx of people who will have confirmed cases of the infections. Now, various government facilities are being prepared to be used as temporary quarantine facilities. Dito rin po, kailangan natin katulong ang ating mga LGUs and the private sectors in order to implement it properly and to be able to provide these services to the most number of people. Testing capacity has been set up. Now, with regards to incidents and deaths and harassment, ito ang importante. While government efforts are being doubled up, the Department of Health has reported last week that there have been 1,062 infected healthcare workers, of whom 422 are doctors, 386 nurses, 30 medical technologists, 21 radiologists, 51 nursing assistants, 152 other medical personnel such as administrative staff and barangay health workers, and of this, 26 have died, including 19 doctors. Mauubusan ho tayo ng ating mga health personnels kung ito ay hindi natin ma-ensure na makakuha sila ng sapat na kagamitan na kanilang kinakailangan. Pangalawa, there are also been reports of health utility workers such as the ones in Sultan Kudarat, which was attacked by 5 individuals. May I remind our LGUs and police force that they have to be more vigilant in trying to protect our medical frontliners dahil kailangan na kailangan natin sila. Now, in addressing hunger for food security and adequate right to adequate food, I think Secretary Dar was very much on point when he declared that ensuring food security should be at the forefront of our priorities, along with ensuring the safety and health of our people. The threat of hunger is real as a threat of COVID-19. Sinabi kanina ni Chairman Buboy Tupas, yung pangangailangan na mapanatili natin yung ease ng transmission ng ferrying of goods from the provinces to the destinations within Metro Manila, outside Metro Manila, or to other provinces para masiguro natin may pagkain yung ating mga kababayan. Ang isa pang problema na ngayon lumalabas dahil dito sa lockdown which is being implemented and the drive of various LGUs and barangays to provide food to their constituency, nauubusan na ho tayo ng manufactured or canned goods. Now, there have been reports that because of the implementation of ECQ by various local government units, may mga manggagawa na hindi makapunta dun sa mga factory ng pagkain, paggawaan ng pagkain, ng dilatang pagkain, because they are prevented by the LGUs to go in or enter those places. Even if they possess IDs which theoretically should have allowed them to report to work. So sana makita ito at bigyan pansin ni Secretary Anyo dahil magkakaroon ho tayo ng problema kung mauubusan ho tayo ng maipapakain sa ating mga kababayan. Now, the right to be informed on matters of public concern. The President himself has been regularly providing information to the public about developments on the actions being undertaken by the government against COVID-19. More particularly, the President has given attention on the need to maintain discipline and to comply with social distancing guidelines among the people. In fact, palagay ko, ito yung nagiging malaking dahilan kung bakit naging acceptable o bakit dahil madaming sumusunod sa pagpapatupad nito. Doon din sa mga daily briefings ng presidential spokesperson, inuulit nito ang pangangailangan to maintain ECQ and to maintain the proper distancing and use of mask. Gaya ng nabanggit ko kanina, it is imperative that all agencies in government gets the proper message across. Not only to our citizens, but also to those people who are implementing it. Now, ang recommendations namin for our way forward. The government and all its branches must be cognizant of the primary obligations of the state as duty bearer, even in a state of national emergency. The global pandemic is no justification for the government or any of its agents to renege on its primary obligation to respect, protect, and fulfill human rights duties to its people. Everyone must uphold the primordial right of citizens as enshrined in the Constitution and in treaty law obligations. Republic Act number 114-69 and the emergency powers given to the President should be exercised in accordance with the Constitution. Consequently, the use of excessive force and other disproportionate acts against citizens in the implementation of the ECQ cannot be countenanced. The whole of government and human rights-based approach in legislation and policy making must be consistently adopted and applied. The government has adopted in the Bayanihan Law and in several of its policy a whole of government approach. It is highly recommended that in all of its subsequent programs and policies during this period and beyond, the human rights standard of equality and non-discrimination, public participation, transparency, and accountability, among others, be incorporated to guarantee respect for human rights, due process, and equal protection of the law. The Zero Hunger Bill, the bill promoting the rights against discrimination, and similar bills that provide additional protection for the vulnerable and disadvantaged sectors of society must be enacted in the coming months. It has been acknowledged that the marginalized and vulnerable sector in our society, including the poor and underprivileged, sick, elderly, women and children, persons deprived of liberty, indigenous people, among others, needs extra care and effort from the government. These measures aim to elevate hunger and poverty using the human rights-based framework. Develop behaviors that will minimize, if not eliminate, discrimination at all times and ensure access to justice and the rule of law. Fourth, law enforcement officers, the military and local government units who implement the laws and enforce government protocols must observe due process and the rule of law in manning the checkpoints, in the conduct of arrest of any individuals or any search or seizures of goods or property. Ito po yung kalimitan na ngayon nagiging reklamo ng ating mamamayan. Kaya iba yung pag-iingat ho ang kailangan dito. In view thereof, it is suggested that in order for the government and its people to understand each other, there must be some discipline and respect for one another. Proper agencies must do aggressive information campaign about the rights and duties of citizens during ECQ. Government officials must do their duties properly so they would not get the ire or mistrust of the people. More importantly, agents of government must know by heart certain protocols in effecting arrest of ECQ violators. They must also understand that a state of emergency is not a state of martial law. Hence, basic human and constitutional rights, including those of violators, must be properly protected and upheld at all times. And lastly, Congress may conduct inquiries in aid of legislation to look into possible violations of human rights that may be committed by persons in authority or their agents, or any persons or entity during the period of national emergency as a declaration thereof. And I would like to remind everyone na yung mga reported violations ay pag-aaralan natin mabuti and that our committee will look at it in the proper time. So lastly, proper enforcement of ECQ and public cooperation are imperative to achieve success in our nation's fight against COVID-19. Indeed, under this extraordinary health crisis, the inherent right of everyone to life and to health take precedence over some of individual rights. After all, as the Latin maxim goes, salus populi est suprema lex, the welfare of the people is the supreme law. Maraming salamat po sa inyo lahat.
Maraming salamat, Chairman Bong Suntay of the Human Rights Committee. At this point, I'd like to thank all our presenters from the House of Representatives DCC Cluster Committee on your very comprehensive presentations. Ito po ang sumatotal ng lahat ng consultations of all our legislators with one another and through the DCC and the respective clusters, particularly the peace and order. Kaya nagpapasalamat talaga tayo sa lahat sa pasyensya niyo, and we hope that Secretary Anyos, Secretary Galvez, Chief PNP, and all our other valued resource persons were able to get insights. These are direct inputs from our members of the House. All 300 members of the House participated in the summation of all of this. Before we present our most honorable guest of honor, Secretary Anyo, I'd like to acknowledge the other House leaders who are also observing and in attendance. Deputy Speaker Dinan Hernandez from Coronadal, Representative Cheryl Delioso Montalia, the chairperson on the Committee on Revision of the Laws. She used to be the chairperson on the Committee on Human Rights as well in the 17th Congress. Congressman Ace Barber, the chairman on the Committee on Dangerous Drugs. Congressman Khalid Dimaporo, chairman on the Mindanao Affairs Committee, and Congresswoman Divine Graciu of the IP Interparliamentary Committee. So these are those who are in attendance. Before we present our most honorable resource persons, we have a brief video clip as a summation as to what has been transpiring and what has been available to all the people in the news. Please present the video clip. Thank you.
Matapos pong makipagpulong ang ating presidente sa mga miyembro ng IATF, tinanggap po niya ang rekomendasyon ng IATF na ilagay po sa patuloy na ECQ ang NCR, Region 3, Region 4A at iba pang mga lugar hanggang Mayo 15 po.
We are all at risk, but do not increase the odds or the chances of getting it.
Thank you. At this juncture, I'd like to present to you a man who needs no introduction, our Department of Interior Local Government Secretary Eduardo Año, a good friend of ours. Maraming salamat sa pasensya niyo ngayon at your attendance. We hope that you have gleaned some insights from the inputs of Congress, and you have the floor, sir. Mr. Secretary, Your Honor.
Maraming salamat po to our esteemed members of the Defeat COVID-19 Special Committee Technical Working Group led by House Majority Leader Martin Romualdez. Sa atin din pong mga committee chairpersons na nag-present po, Congressman Bong Bravo, Congressman Boboy Tupas, Congressman Bong Suntay, and also Congressman Benny Abante, our minority leader. Thank you for your commitment in safeguarding the Filipino population amid this ongoing global pandemic. As early as January this year, the DOJ has already taken active steps to contain the potential spread of COVID-19 in our country. We initially came out with two critical policies as part of preparing our local governments to address and contain the escalation of the virus. First, we crafted the Guide to Action Against Coronavirus, detailing the roles of the local chief executives as information managers, local crisis managers, and environmental health managers. The issuance also ordered the organization and mobilization of the Barangay Health Emergency Teams, or BERTs, whose function is to cater to possible COVID cases in their areas. So far, we have 42,500 BERTs organized nationwide. This was followed by the amended Guide to Action, which gave more details to the roles of the local chief executives during the pandemic. Also included in this policy is the identification and operationalization of the so-called Barangay Isolation Units, or BIUs, where the PUMs and PUIs will be housed to undergo the mandatory 14-day quarantine. And as early as February, the DILG already anticipated how this pandemic should be addressed at the local level and ensure that our LGUs will become reliable frontliners and partners in addressing this problem. In fact, proactive measures came even before the IATF directed the LGUs to identify their own isolation facilities. Thus, the DILG, being a member of the IATF EID, was instrumental to the President's decision that placed the National Capital Region under the General Community Quarantine. This was later upgraded to a zone-wide enhanced community quarantine, which was also emulated by several LGUs in Visayas and Mindanao. During these periods, numerous measures were implemented, such as the setting up of quarantine control and checkpoints, creation of ECQ protocols, as well as mobilization of our frontliners from the medical, the law enforcement, military, and other providers of essential services. In line with this, the PNP has created the Joint Task Force Coronavirus Shield, or JTF-CB Shield, which could synchronize all of their COVID-related actions, of course, under the supervision of our Chief PNP General Archie Francisco Gamboa, and directly supervised by Lieutenant General Guillermo Ilazar. To further ensure coherence of government actions, the National Task Force on COVID was created, chaired by the Defense Secretary, Delphine Lorenzana, with me as the Vice Chair, and Secretary Carlito Valdez Jr. as Chief Implementer. The entire COVID The NTF-COVID is responsible to carry out the whole of nation approach to address this pandemic. It is also to function or to implement all the policies promulgated by the IATF. The implementation of the ECQ was riddled with challenges, especially in ensuring consistency and alignment of LGU actions and decisions with the guidelines of the IATF EID. Bunsod ng pagkakaiba ng mga pangangailangan sa lokal na pamahalaan ay nagkaroon din ng makakaibang interpretasyon ng mga panuntunan. Hence, the DILG strictly monitored the decisions and actions of LGUs throughout the country in connection with the ECQ, as well as persuaded our local chief executives to modify or totally void their actions, particularly their issued executive orders and ordinances, if these are not in consonance with any of the IATF's directives. But for those local chief executives who continue to defy the IATF guidelines, show cause orders were issued, if only to emphasize that no LCE is above the law. The department has also mandated our LGUs to craft local ordinances which would promote social distancing, mandatory wearing of face masks, regular disinfections, and other preventive measures as part of our transition to the new normal. But keeping the people off the streets and inside their homes is not enough. Therefore, in line with the national strategy to identify persons who should be tested, isolated, managed, and cured, and eventually be reintegrated back to their families and communities, the DILG, by virtue of Memo Circular 2020-77, called for the creation and operationalization of the provincial, city, municipal COVID task forces to fast-track efforts to contain the pandemic, all under the National Task Force COVID. Each local COVID task force will have 4 important teams, specifically the local contact tracing team, to track down and identify suspected persons with known exposure and contact to confirm COVID-19 cases. Ang ating pong local epidemiological surveillance unit, kasama ang Philippine National Police, ang pinaka-nucleus nitong local contact tracing teams. At sila ay tutulungan ng iba't iba pang ahensya upang siguraduhin mahanap natin ang lahat ng pwedeng posibleng maging COVID cases dahil sila ay naka-associate sa isang COVID positive. The diagnostic and testing team to lead in the expanded and targeted testing for health workers, PUMs, and PUIs using both the rapid antibodies testing kit and the RT-PCR. The patient management and monitoring section, comprised of the isolation facility management team, na siyang mangangalaga sa mga positive at mild cases na ilalagay sa isolation facility. COVID referral liaison team, ito naman po ang mag-refer sa ating mga mayroong moderate at severe symptoms para sila ay ma-commit sa level 2, level 3 or COVID hospitals. Sila rin po ang maglalayason para dalhin ang mga mild at asymptomatic sa ating mega treatment management facilities. The reintegration and psychosocial intervention team also to isolate and transfer confirmed cases to either the local mega treatment and monitoring facilities. And the section will likewise help recovered patients to integrate back into the mainstream. And finally, the logistics and resources support team, which will make sure that PPEs are procured, donations are well managed, and resources are readily available for COVID-19 interventions. Mahalaga ang papel ng local task forces na ito upang siguruhin magagampanan ng ating mga health at medical professionals ang kanilang mga tungkulin. Relative to the plight of our medical and health service providers, we are among the first to enjoin our people and LGUs not to ostracize or discriminate our frontline workers. Furthermore, we urge our local governments to identify and provide temporary shelters or housing for health and medical workers as a way of alleviating their troubles. And we are doubly glad that many LGUs have responded to our call. And while the Social Amelioration Program is currently being led by the DSWD, the DILG does not mince its support in this endeavor. We have ordered barangays to be transparent and accountable in the distribution of the SAP. We have even mandated LGUs to come up with their own social welfare and socio-economic programs to soften the blow of the ECQ on highly affected citizens. As we battle through the multifaceted problem of COVID-19, strict observance of human rights remains at the core of our initiatives. In the case of our barangay health emergency response teams and our LGUs, we remind them to honor the rights of health workers, the PUMs, the PUIs, and COVID positives and their families. Discrimination was never and must never be promoted or tolerated. Kung may mga lumalabag sa mga karapatang pantao, sisiguraduhin po ng DILG na haharapin nila ang aksyong legal laban sa kanila. This is also especially true to our law enforcers and other uniformed frontliners. Truth is, the success of this endeavor in winning the support and cooperation of the citizenry rests on how professional our men in uniform are, especially in giving utmost respect for human lives. And I'm proud to say our uniformed servicemen have gone over and above this by balancing both the law enforcement with compassion during the ECQ. Of course, there are the perennial critics ready to pounce at and magnify some lapses committed by our policemen in the performance of their duty. Nakahanda kami at inaasahan na namin ang mga iyan, but we will not let them dampen the spirit nor taint and belittle the sacrifices given by our police frontliners in this war. We are also aware of the efforts by some groups to paint a bad image of what the government and our policemen are doing, especially these leftist organizations capitalize on and exploit the temporary hardships of our people to advance their sinister agenda. Tuloy-tuloy pa rin po naman ang ating National Task Force to end the local communist armed conflict all over the country. But in spite of these setbacks, we reassure not only the honorable members of these committees, but also our men in uniform that we will continue carrying out our mandate with the best interest and welfare of our people and nation in our minds. Likewise, we will protect our policemen, our soldiers, from those who will intimidate and besmirch their reputation while performing their duties. Nasa likod ng ating kapulisan ang suporta ng inyong lingkod at ng buong pamunuan ng DILG, PNP at Pamahalaan Nasyonal. In line with this, I'd like to emphasize the importance of strict and uncompromising yet humane enforcement of the ECQ and GCQ. The only way to succeed in flattening the curve is by ensuring that everyone cooperates and abides by the directives and restrictions imposed by the different levels of community quarantine. Otherwise, we will just keep on prolonging the battle versus COVID-19. Alam natin na matagal pa ang problema na ito sapagkat wala pa itong nakikitang vaccine. Baka po sa buong 2020, kaharapin pa rin natin ito, and we will make sure that your DILG and PAP are always ready for this. We also vow to impose a more stringent monitoring of LGU compliance with the IATF's guidelines and PRRD's pronouncements. Because even if we have police and military forces on the ground, critical still is the role and participation of our local government units and barangays in the fight for Philippine public health survival. And as the government continues to unify in conducting the national strategy against COVID and in adhering to the guidelines of the IATF, we at the DILG pledge to strengthen our role in bridging the actions of national and local governments in combating this pandemic. And I call on our honorable members of Congress to give us the needed boost in our measures. Without your help, our efforts will be tied and limited as the race to save the lives of our countrymen rages on. And I'd like to thank the reports and the presentation of our committee chairpersons because we are taking notes of all your observations and we will take all appropriate actions to ensure that all issues and concerns are resolved. So again, I would like to express my sincerest gratitude to the Defeat COVID-19 Special House Committee Technical Working Group on Peace and Order for your time. May wisdom guide you as you delve to unite with us in the battle for human survival in the Philippine Sea. Long live our heroes and long live the Filipino people. Magandang umaga po at maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat ang mahal nating Secretary Ed Año, our partner in peace, progress, prosperity, and in the swift recovery on COVID. Maraming salamat sa mga mensahe galing sa ating Manong Pangulo. We are here, Mr. Secretary, to assist you, to be your partners, and to make sure that all your initiatives and that of the President become very successful. That is why we are sharing with you all the inputs. These are inputs from over 300 congressmen who want to do the same and who are one with you. And we are very grateful of your patience, pasensya na po, to listen to all of us. And whatever initiatives you have, we shall pursue them as soon as possible at your instance. And maraming salamat po. We will also now listen to another member of the President's team, the Honorable General Carlito G. Galvez, our Presidential Peace Advisor, the Chief Implementer, and the National Task Force of COVID-19. Secretary Carlito G. Galvez, Chief Implementer, you have the floor.
Sir, Your Honors, thank you for the invitation to be here in the congressional hearing on peace and order. Mr. Chair, to all distinguished members of the House of Representatives, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of our NTF COVID Chief, the SND Secretary Lorenzana, and our SILG, Eduardo Año, I would like to present to you our concept in the implementation of the National Action Plan on COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic has put countries all over the world, including our own, at a virtual standstill. All social activities, tourism, travel, and economic activity have ground to a halt. The Duterte administration knew that it was a race against time. He has to act fast. Otherwise, we will suffer the same fate as other nations who did not respond quickly enough. And so, on March 16, with the recommendation of General Año and member of the IATF, the President Duterte declared a Luzon-wide enhanced community quarantine. It was a very difficult decision, but it had to be made in order to fight for our survival and the safety of our people. However, during the implementation of the ECQ, we witnessed something extraordinary. It was the indomitable Bayanan spirit of the Filipino people in full display. The Bayanan innate in all of us. It courses through our veins. We would like to thank the members of the Congress for passing the Bayanihan to Heal as one act and providing us the resources that we need to sustain our fight against COVID. Now we'll proceed now to the presentation. As the NTF COVID Chief Implementer, it is my distinct honor to present to you the general concept of the National Action Plan and the current situation and our actions to fight the pandemic crisis. I will not delve more on the security, considering that our next presenter will be dealing more on the tactical, on the peace and security. Our strategy to respond to the threats of the COVID-19 is focused on understanding, first, the current condition, and focusing on specific lines of efforts. Our desired end state is that the spread of COVID is prevented and contained, its impact to economy is mitigated, and the government and the private institutions combine its resources so that we can resume their functions and the people return to their new normal life. We will implement this through the DITR strategy, meaning detect, isolate, treat, and reintegrate. Detection is anchored on a strong and massive testing and tracing by the LGUs. SILG made it a point that our local government executives should take the lead of testing, tracing, and isolating suspected COVID cases, and then on treatment facility for the proper care, then reintegrate them to their communities. Our strategy is centered on aggressive testing and tracing. Most successful countries like Vietnam, Germany, South Korea, and other countries in fighting COVID, they invested more in eliminating and unmasking the threat by massive testing and contact tracing. The duties and responsibilities of the NTF COVID-19 was simplified through the 4 task groups on response operations, resource management and logistics, and strategic communication and food security. If you can see, the National Command Authority, which is headed by the President, he is being supported by the IATF, who made the policy guidelines and recommendations to the President. And the NTF COVID-19, which is chaired by Secretary Lorenzana and vice-chaired by Secretary Año, and myself as the chief implementer, doing a day-to-day battle against COVID. So we're maintaining a 24/7 battle staff at GHQ Camp Aguinaldo. So as you can see, TG's response is being headed by Secretary Duque. The TG Resource Management and Logistics is headed by Secretary Bautista. The TG Stratcom is headed by CABSEC, Nograles, and the Food Security headed by Secretary Dyer of the Department of Agriculture. In the left-hand side, you can see the organizations have been localized through our regional task forces, provincial task forces, and the municipal task forces. Next slide, please. Shown is the expanded localized organization to ensure that the strategic concept and tasks were cascaded down to the regional, provincial, and city levels. In the task force, we believe that this fight is not only owned by us, but by the LGUs who are fighting this in the battleground. This is the current COVID-19 situation, with the NCR has heavily affected with more or less 70% affectation of the total affectation, followed by Region 4A, Region 3, Region 7, Central Luzon, and then also with Davao region. Previously, Region 3 is at the third. Now, the Central Visayas took over Central Luzon with the outbreak in Barangay Luz in Cebu City. This current affectation were the primary basis, one of the primary bases for the declaration of ECQ and lockdown, or strict movement restriction, in order to prevent further spread and contain the contamination to other areas. On the next slide, risk was based by geographical sectoral risk and the degree of expectation and the minimum health standards or capacity to respond to the pandemic crisis. This was devised by our mathematicians, experts, UP experts, and also epidemiologists, and several doctors headed by Dr. Wong, and also by our technical working group who devise our future operations and also mitigating the economic impact of the COVID crisis. This is headed by our Secretary, Carl Chua. This is the provisions between the restrictions during ECQ and GCQ. We would like to thank the DILG, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the PNP, and the other security forces for their services in the front lines, even with the clear present danger of being contaminated along the way. So we would like to thank the DILG, the AFP, the PNP, who tirelessly implemented the enhanced quarantine down to barangay and even sitio level. Next, we will discuss on the minimum health standard. DOH shall be setting a minimum public health standard to guide our national and local government units in the development of sector-specific and localized guidelines on the mitigation of measures for each COVID response across the setting. So the required public health standard across setting, including all the hand washing, wearing of masks, and other safety measures and other awareness in disinfecting facilities and practicing physical and social distancing. And then next, if you'll see, the number 1 and 2 are normally the national effort. But on the 3 and 4, it is basically on the local government effort downstream. So on testing capacity, the national government is trying to ramp up its testing capability now from 6,000 to 10,000 and later to 30,000. During the briefing of Secretary Chua, he equated our capacity to testing on our ability to lift the ECQ at the same time to minimize casualties from the COVID crisis. That's why in this event, we are trying to test all suspected PUIs and PUMs and the healthcare workers and frontliners so that we can arrest and flatten the spread of the virus. We would also establish testing laboratories to strategic areas, particularly in the strategic regions of the country. On the treatment capacity, the designated level 2 and level 3 hospitals for severe and critical patients has been designated. And also we established and even converted mega quarantine facilities for mild COVID patients and also for PUMs and even for the incoming OFWs. LGU's capacity to respond, adapt, contain, and prevent the spread and eliminate the threat of COVID should be enhanced in order to further mitigate the social, economic, and security impacts of COVID-19 pandemics. It is also very important that community awareness and participation for the adaptations of the new normal is very, very critical. On our critical task and way forward, we are planning to conduct massive and expanded testing aggressively with the testing of all the PUIs and PUMs and frontliners in NCR not later than May 2020. We consider that the NCR is the epicenter, considering that it has an affectation of 70%, and we believe that the NCR is the center of gravity. Once we have finished and we are able to flatten the curve in the NCR, we believe that we are 70% finished and win the fight against COVID. And also, on the red areas, those declared ECQ, we are planning to clear all the PUIs and suspected COVID cases and frontliners not later than on 15 May 2020, so that the red areas can be evaluated to become orange or yellow areas. We will work on for the 20,000 tests per day, not later than 15 2020, and 30,000 tests per day, not later than 30 May 2020, with the 24 hours least time and 48 maximum time release of result. We will be being helped by the different private sectors in establishing and expanding with additional 6 testing centers, 4 in the NCR and 1 in Region 3 and 1 in Region 4. We would like to thank all the private sectors and also our philanthropists for donating a lot of PCR and automated extraction machines, and also ventilators, and also PPEs. And then number 3, establish or identify testing laboratories, COVID referral hospitals in strategic locations, and quarantine areas at the regional, provincial, and even city levels. And then number 4, reconfigure all facilities to be adapt to the new normal of social and physical distancing, biosafety awareness, and protection of elders and other vulnerable sectors. One of our critical tasks right now is to ensure that our OFWs will not become the imported COVID carriers. So with that, we have a one-stop shop in the airports. As you can see, they're being tested immediately by rapid test. Upon embarkation in the airport, it will become a new normal that everybody will be undergoing rapid test. Then after that, they will go 14 days quarantine and they will be swabbed afterwards with the PCR before they will be sent off to the LGU, so that the LGUs will be assured that when we transported to the OFWs to their places, they are COVID-free. Then also, we have thousands of stranded individuals, and we will be facilitating the return to their respective areas, particularly those who are stranded construction workers and also students. Also, we will facilitate repatriation of the foreign nationals. And then lastly, we will continue the mobilization and the private sector assets. We are very thankful with our CSOs and also with our private sector who provided billions of pesos for our PPEs, for our medical supplies, and also for donations to support our amelioration program. That ends my briefing, and maraming po tayong lahat at maraming po salamat sa ating mga congressman who help us to heal as one. Maraming po salamat at maraming po salamat sa inyong po suporta sa amin.
Maraming salamat, Secretary Carlito Galvez. Ay napakalinaw at saka napakaganda yung presentation. It's quite an impressive array of measures taken. And maganda po na na-present po niyo ngayon. Kaya the members of the House of Representatives and the media, I think for the first time had a very, very in-depth presentation from the good Secretary Anyo in your good office. Kasi nalalaman natin you're doing a lot, but to see it in this type of presentation gives us a better understanding. Kaya just remember that we also have, besides our House leadership, we have many members of the media also watching and observing the proceedings. And later on in the session, we'll have a brief question and answer. At this juncture, I'd like to acknowledge two of my very, very honored colleagues in the House of Representatives, Congressman Chiquiting Castagarbaria, our chairperson of the Western Philippine Sea, and Chairperson Ria Vergara, our chair for the Committee on Ethics and Privileges. So thank you very much, sir, Secretary Galvez, in your presentation. At this point now, we are ready now to hear the presentation of Chief PNP Chief Francisco Gambo, our Chief of the Philippine National Police. Chief, if you're ready, we'll be more than happy to hear your presentation po. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, sir, to the Honorable Chairman and the Honorable members of the House of Representatives. A pleasant good afternoon. I have a prepared briefing, sir, but it's quite lengthy, around 45 minutes. So I'd rather go to the different questions that were brought about by the Honorable Congressman Tupas and the Honorable Congressman Suntay by way of my comment and also recommendations on the part of the PNP. Sir, first on the strict implementation, of course, in the advent of the observation no less than with the President, we have actually shifted before April 23, no, when we started March 17, around 30% were only fined and charged in court. There were actually 70% who are warned. But later, upon the directive of strict implementation, this has actually shifted to 100% already fine and who were charged in court. So nagkaroon sir ng baliktad na paradigm because nga para sumunod yung mga tao. But in fairness also to the number of reported cases on violation of the ECQ provisions, there has been a decline, averaging at around 8,000 at the start in March 17. It's now as low as almost 300 or 400 a day. So there has been a great improvement, and probably because of the constant implementation of quarantine regulations. But sir, I'd like to, since we're in the House of Representatives, I'd like to bring out a few legislative challenges on the part of the Philippine National Police. We are able to implement these quarantine provisions promulgated by Interagency Task Force. But first, sir, I'd like to bring out the provisions of Republic Act 11469. If we go to the punitive provisions of 11469, the more or less related provisions of which the PNP can implement, however, with the great assistance of the concerned agency, like for example, sir, on hoarding, we cannot, as an agency, move towards it or overpriced, not unless we enjoy the company of DTI, who has visitorial powers over this establishment. Second is on the fake news. Of course, the PNP has a mandate to pursue those who are involved in fake news in coordination with the ICT. And then two of the punitive provisions are on transport, which I think primarily would delve on the OTR, and then roads and highways, which will also delve on DPWH implementation, or primarily are tasked to LTO. So these are the provisions of the Bayanihan Act, of which the PNP can directly act, but again, with the assistance of the different agency who has the visitorial powers and who have the regulatory powers over the said provisions. And of course, we have been encouraging the different local government units to enact ordinances like simple wearing of face masks, social distancing, mass gathering, because only then can the Philippine National Police actually impose this. No? Kasi the Philippine National Police is confronted with a question on what to charge, or how are we going to charge the different persons apprehended. But I already gave a directive to revisit Republic Act 11332, or the Pandemic Act, because I believe, of which was affirmed by our legal service, that the Pandemic Act should in a way put teeth on the IATF policies, meaning to say based on subordinate legislation, because the Pandemic Act says that in relation to Section 3 and Section 9E on response and non-cooperation, then we believe that any violation of IATF policy, who actually formulates specific activities to control the spread and even prevent recurrence of the pandemic, are the rightful provisions. But of course, there's a question of, can the IATF create provisions or prohibitions with penalty, with appropriate penalties? Of course, sir, in the principle of interpretation of these laws, we believe that in relation to Republic Act 11332, it can do so. Now, based on that, the PNP is always left on the possible appreciation of overt acts of people who tends to violate and then charge them with the revised penal code. So ito, sir, this purely boils down to the discretion of the police officer. Kaya nga, sir, I have been suggesting that really we put teeth to Republic Act 11332 so that the IATF prohibitions or policies that once implemented, meron pong basihan ang Philippine National Police to go against those who are violators of the same. And of course, sir, yung sabi nga kanina, yung kanino ngayon ang discretion, no? Kasi sir, sa presentation actually ng NEDA in the Interagency Task Force, of which I am a member, there will be a lot of complications of which actually the PNP is preparing based on the directive of the SILG on the new normal, which is the general community quarantine. Sir, if we revisit the briefings of NEDA, there are a lot of complications like who are allowed to go out of their residences. There's the demographic profile based on age group. There's the mode of transportation pertaining to public who are allowed, based on essential workers and managers who are allowed to go out and do their thing. Provisions on malls. So all of these things would boil down to classifying who are authorized person outside of their residences. And the introduction of the rapid pass, who actually is whose objective actually is to pre-screen those authorized person who are outside residents, so that when we have that implemented, wala na masyado sir discretion on the part of the PNP on whom to allow and whom not to allow. Kasi sir, meron na siyang pre-screening, and then through a QR code, we can easily scan it at checkpoints, then there will be no more questions on this. Now, sir, next on the behavior of the Philippine National Police, especially in implementing regulations of the ECQ, we have constantly reminded, of course, our policemen, in relation to the comment of Congressman Suntay, to observe human rights. No? Again, tama yun sir, yung sinabi niya na this declaration of emergency does not actually mean that it would change our appreciation of the human rights which should prevail during ordinary times. The Philippine National Police understands that and constantly reminds our policemen to follow the same. So sir, in relation din dun sa tamba, yung mga pasaway, and again, it will boil down to the legislative challenges that we have, that I have just brought out, sir. So really, we want to have probably interpretations on the part of the House of Representatives to reinforce our belief that indeed there are laws that can be used in the implementation of quarantine provisions promulgated by the Interagency Task Force. So that, sir, is a way of my comment, and we're ready to answer questions later, sir. Thank you, sir, and pleasant good morning once again to everyone.
Maraming salamat to our Chief PNP, General Archie Gamboa. And thank you for being available later for our Q&A and for your direct fielding of the queries and questions of our co-chair, Congressman Buboy Tupas. Our next resource person is Undersecretary Bernardo Flores, who graduated from the Philippine Military Academy in 1983. He holds a master's degree in Business Administration and International Academy of Management and Economics, and is currently pursuing a doctorate degree in Environmental Studies. He started his military career in the Philippine Constabulary before joining the PNP in 1991. In 2001, he joined the National Drug Law Enforcement and Prevention Coordinating Center, now the Vide, and was later detailed to the Dangerous Drugs Board, where he was placed under special detail with the Anti-Smuggling Intelligence Investigation. He joined the PNP in 2003, and during his stint as secretary to the directional staff, he was promoted police general. He was later appointed director of the Philippine Community Affairs Development Group. Undersecretary Flores is a career service executive. He is also a recipient of numerous awards, decorations, and commendations from the military and the police establishment. At present, he is also serving as the Undersecretary for Peace and Order under the Department of the Interior and Local Government. Undersecretary Flores, you have the floor. Are you here?
Pwede natin malaman tong ilan ang GLPAP nito lahat, itong Cebu City.
Okay. Well, right now we don't seem to have the USEC on board yet, so we'll proceed to our next resource person. And I'd like to introduce to you our next guest speaker is our Lieutenant General Guillermo Lorenzo Tolentino Eliazar, Deputy Chief of PNP Operations. General Lorenzo Eliazar graduated from the Philippine Military Academy in 1987, cum laude. His career in law enforcement was first highlighted when he was designated as head of the Philippine National Police Anti-Cyber Crime Group ACG, where he led police operations against individuals and groups engaged in the online sexual exploitation of children. In July 2016, he was appointed as District Director of the Quezon City Police District, QCPD, where he pursued a relentless drive against illegal drugs and other forms of criminality, earning for the QCPD the Most Trusted Police District Award. In April 2018, he was promoted and appointed Regional Director of PRO Calabarzon, Pro 4A. After only 42 days in this assignment, General Eleazar was transferred to the National Capital Regional Police Office and served as NCRPO Regional Director. In 2019, he was honored by the Metrobank Foundation for his exemplary work in crime prevention and crime solution, and by the Civil Service Commission, which conferred on him the Presidential Lingkod ng Bayan Award for Public Service. In the same year, the NCRPO was awarded the Best Regional Police Office Award as a first in the history of the region. In recognition of his many accomplishments as police officer, he was appointed Chief of PNP Command Group as the Chief of Directional Staff and received his 3rd star. Early this year, General Eleazar was appointed Deputy Chief of Operations for the Philippine National Police. General Eleazar, you have the floor.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, at magandang hapon din po sa lahat. Sir, actually, I didn't expect that I'll be giving a briefing, but just the same, our Chief PNP, General Gamboa, has said all our concern pertaining to PNP. Actually, sir, I was endorsed by our Chief PNP to lead the Joint Task Force COVID Shield. This Joint Task Force COVID Shield is, well, it is composed of not only the PNP, but also the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the Philippine Coast Guard, and also the Bureau of Fire Protection. Right now, we have at least 77,000 personnel deployed, 65,000 coming from the PNP, and 12,000 coming from the 3 other agencies of the government. So our main function is to oversee the implementation of the guidelines coming from the IATF. And I'm directly being supervised by General Gamboa, and along my deputies are the different senior officers of the 4 different agencies. So right now, sir, during the implementation of the ECQ, we are on the 43rd days, and what we have done so far is to, out of the guidelines being given by the Interagency Task Force, tinatranslate natin yun, sir, sa mga APOR. Ito sir yung pangalan na binigay ng ating hepe na authorized persons outside residence. And ito yung nagsisilbing guide ng ating mga law enforcement agencies on the different quarantine control points or checkpoints. We have at least 4,200 checkpoints. Most of them are quarantine checkpoints manned by the local police. And they're the one inspecting the non-cargo vehicle, whereas the some 112 dedicated control points manned by Highway Patrol Group located on the strategic location. Ito po yung sa mga usually boundary ng mga probinsya natin na sila lang ang nagche-check ng cargo vehicles natin para hindi po ulit-ulit na magche-check siya. Well, ito po to ensure the unimpeded and hampered movement of our cargo. So, ito po yung base natin sa ECQ, and based on the guidance of our CPNP, we are preparing for another list for the GCQ. So ito naman po yung ating general quarantine, community quarantine, that we are just getting some details from the 5 member departments of the IATF so that we can complete this one. So we are committed, this Joint Task Force COVID Shield, to continue enforce all these guidance or guidelines being given to us by the IATF, and finalizing all the details of this one so that by May 1, the personnel coming from the agencies concerned will be able to implement this strictly and with due consideration, of course, to the given apport from both the ECQ and the GCQ. So I'll just be here, sir, just in case na magkaroon ng open forum mamaya, at concerning the enforcement, I'm with our Chief PNP on this matter. Thank you very much, sir.
Majo, you are on mute.
So sorry about that. Our next speaker is the Jail Director, Alan S. Iral. Maraming salamat, General Eliezer, for your presentation. Jail Chief Alan Iral is the head of Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, a highly trained person in the field of corrections. He has a degree in education, graduated cum laude from the University of San Recoletos in Cebu City, and has taught for 3 years at Surigao del Sur Institute of Technology before he decided to join the PNP Academy and become a member of the Sandigan class of 1994. 2 years later, he joined the jail service as a young officer, during which time he completed his master's degree in management at the Philippine Christian University. To our jail director, Alan S. Iral, you have the floor. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, sir. To the Majority Leader, Congressman Martin Romualdez, the Minority Leader, Congressman Bini Abanti, the Chairperson of Committee on Public Order, Congressman Narciso Bravo, and Chairperson of the Committee on National Defense, Congressman Raul Topas, Chairperson of the Committee on Human Rights, Kong Bong Santay, other honorable members of the various committees present, to the LG Secretary Eduardo Año, sir, and Yosek Verne Flores, and our IATF Chief Implementer, Secretary Galvez, sir, PNP Chief Archie Gambua, sir, Lieutenant General Ilyasar, other public servants, sir, ma'am, sa mga kababayan po nating nakasubaybay sa pagpupulong na ito, magandang hapon po. We would like to report to the committee that 3 out of the 468 facilities under the BGMP has been compromised already with existing cases being taken care of. So the sequence of my presentation, the COVID-19 summary report, the actions taken by the BGMP, and the ways forward. The 3 facilities I am talking about, sir, ito po yung Quezon City Jail, Cebu City Jail, and Mandawi City Jail, kung saan meron na po tayo mga PDL na positive for COVID-19. We tested a total of 381 personnel already, and 38 of them turned out positive to COVID-19. And although yung naka-reflect sa screen, sir, ay 4 lang, but I was informed this morning na nadagdagan na po ng isa, 5 out of this 38 personnel has already recovered. That is in Quezon City Jail. Meanwhile, 195 of the 373 persons deprived of liberty we tested were positive of COVID-19. So in total, sir, yung Mandawi, Cebu City, and Quezon City, Meldorm, meron po tayong kabuang 13,355 PDLs dyan. Ang total na jail pop namin nationwide is 134,285 as of today. So yun po, sir, yung na-breach ng COVID-19 na virus sa aming jail facilities. Itong sa Mandawi, sir, yung isang nag-positive dyan na PDL ay nasa Vicente Soto Hospital. And I was informed by the regional director there in Region 7 that testing for sa mga PDL natin at personnel will be conducted today. So hopefully, wala sana magpa-positive doon sa jail facility within Mandawi. So for the other jail facilities, sir, ang na-infect po ay yung mga personnel lang. Wala po yung mga PDL natin. And for NCR, ito lang po yung sa Quezon City Jail na they are isolated already. This is the situation we are in now, and that is why we are putting all efforts in coordination with other concerned government agencies to protect our personnel and persons deprived of liberty and of all our jail facilities from COVID-19. Taking the following steps, so I would like to present to you, sir, the actions taken. Number 1, all patients, personnel, and PDL were isolated for more focused medical care and under close monitoring by the agency in coordination with the Department of Health and the local epidemiology unit of LGUs. Number 2, we are doing targeted mass testing at the Quezon City Jail Male Dormitory in coordination with the Department of Health, as well as in Cebu City Jail through local government of Cebu City and the Department of Health, Region 7. 3, we set up 150-bed COVID isolation center in coordination with the International Committee of the Red Cross for within the BGMP National Capital Region, and we will be establishing or putting up similar isolation facilities in Pampanga and Quezon provinces on top of the existing isolation areas in district, city, and municipal jails nationwide. Number 3, sir, I would like to inform the members of the committee, considering that we have an ongoing construction of jail facilities, particularly outside NCR, in all regions nationwide. So I would like to report to the committee that we have existing isolation facilities in case magkakaroon po ng positive na COVID-19 doon sa ibang mga jail facilities. Number 4, sir, we conducted continuous health monitoring through reverse isolation of PDL, showing COVID-19 symptoms such as fever, cough, and colds, including those with pre-medical condition and elderly for more focused medical care. So ito, sir, ina-isolate na namin, ang tawag namin dito reverse isolation. Lahat ng mga with pre-existing illness, ina-isolate na namin just in case magkakaroon kami ng testing. So sila po yung ipa-priority namin. So number 5, provision of round-the-clock medical support from doctors and nurses and attending the medical needs or medical concerns in jails, and expanded it with telemedicine, a technology-supported system for medical consultations. Then number 6, continuous implementation of precautionary measures such as wearing of face masks, thermal scanning, use of foot baths, and hand washing while maintaining good hygiene. We require our PDL kasi hindi na nga namin ma-ensure, sir, yung physical distancing. So at least kahit sa wearing man lang ng face mask, magagawa po natin. And we directed all our regional directors na mapaprovidean ng face mask yung lahat ng PDL po natin. Then we will continue the distribution of vitamins and masks to PDL and personnel. Then we expanded the electronic dalaw to maintain communication between the PDL and their families. So nagpuput up po, sir, yung mga jail facilities namin ng mga computers, itong tablets, para lang communicate with their families through this e-dalaw. Then daily distribution of cells, daily disinfection rather of cells and other jail facilities while ensuring the availability of disinfectants in strategic locations. We expanded also the conduct of telepsychology that provides the needed psychological support for personnel and the PDL found positive in relation to their mental health concerns and to develop healthy coping skills. Ang ginagawa po namin dito, sir, as much as possible, matatawagan namin, mga kausap namin araw-araw, yung mga nagpa-positive namin ng mga personnel. And for our PDLs, meron naman po silang in charge doon ng mga personnel na doon sa isolation area. Then we conduct continuing information drive on COVID-19 using digital outputs being played during regular dialogues with PDL, including access to various media sources for additional information about the virus. And the last one, sir, in close coordination with the Department of Health and the local epidemiology units for our continuous technical assistance in managing the jail situation relative to COVID-19. And I would like to report to the committee that yesterday, the Department of Health provided us with a total of 1.8 million PPS. Natanggap po namin kahapon galing sa Department of Health kasi sinulatan po namin sila. So na-distribute na po namin to, sir, within Region 3 NCR and Region Calabarzon. So nagpapasalamat kami sa Department of Health. So on top of this, sir, we remain committed, the BJMP remain committed to perform on Monday to safekeep the PDL under our care. So for our wish forward, sir, currently we are working on targeted mass testing of PDL and personnel and compromised BJMP facilities while sustaining our efforts to maintain the COVID-19 free status in other BJMP facilities nationwide. So that answer for my presentation, and thank you very much for listening.
Maraming salamat, Director, sa inyong presentation. Kaya napaka-importante din kay hotspot talaga din yung mga jails natin at correctional centers. We're very glad that we have a very, very able, capable, and experienced man like you in the particularly hotspot area. Maraming salamat. At this point, I'd like to invite our Deputy Speaker, Ferdinand Hernandez, no, from Coronadal, to share with us his message as well as the message of Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano. DS Dinan, you have the floor.
Magandang tanghali po, Majority Leader. Magandang tanghali, Secretary Anyo, PNP Chief Gamboa, of course, Secretary Galvez, si mga chairperson natin, si Bong Suntay, Human Rights, Bong Bravo, and Buboy Tupas, at ang Minority Leader natin, Congressman Abante. Una-una, and of course to other resource person, Bureau of Jail and sa ating armed forces. Una-una, gusto ko munang pasalamatan ang itong IATF natin. No? I know you have a very, very difficult job, and the cooperation between your function now in that of Congress is very important. No? You've heard a very comprehensive presentation ng tatlong committees, no? Very important committees, National Defense, Peace and Order and Safety, and Human Rights. No? Siguro I'd like to point out that nung nag-umpisa yung lockdown, medyo very confusing yung implementation. No? But considering our experience of more than a month now, I'll cite an example. It happened in Region 12, wherein magkakaiba yung mga executive orders na na-issue ng iba-ibang probinsya na nagkaroon ng confusion. And una-una, thank you, Secretary Galvez, no? Way as to the implementation dito dahil maraming conflicting instructions, lalong-lalo sa LGUs na madaling nako-correct because nag-i-intercede yung armed forces and then, of course, ang Philippine National Police. No? And right now, medyo mas a lot of people are quite aware that the instructions of the President through the task force, talagang yun na yung sinusunod. No? So, importante ngayon na especially kay Secretary Anyo and of course kay Secretary Galvez and PNP, na yung guidelines ang nasusunod ngayon yung national na. No? And they're trying to do away with a lot of executive orders from local executives na kasi doon nagkakaroon ng confusion. So ngayon medyo, I think it's quite clear from the instructions of Secretary Anyo and at the same time yung guidelines ng PNP. No? Marami ng national highway, marami ng mga roads natin ang in charge are PNP. And they take directions from the National Task Force. No? And of course, in coordination with the Regional Task Force. So, malaking bagay na when Secretary Anyo will let's say announce that no executive order shall be issued pending the instruction of the National Task Force. So medyo mas klaro ang medyo clear yung directions ngayon dahil they are all waiting sa mga instructions ng National Task Force. And I'd like to commend Secretary Anyo and Galvez and PNP na every time there is a confusion, the knight of the shining armor is usually the PNP. No? They correct the situation, especially in the delivery of agricultural products, delivery of food and medical na medyo maraming confusion as to yung mga borders. No? So I'm glad that slowly, yung mga pinresent ni Congressman Bravo, ni Buboy Tupas, and of course ni Bong are very, very familiar to everybody. So it's not happening, hindi naman isolated dyan. Maraming nangyayari sa iba't ibang lugar. And I think with the way they presented kanina, sila Secretary Anyo and Secretary Galvez and PNP Chief Gamboa, nakita nila yung challenges, and slowly, if we are getting our acts together and we have one direction, I think mas napapadali yung trabaho at saka yung fighting this COVID. No? And I'm glad that we have this hearing to clarify certain issues and move on and work together and come up with one direction. So I think ang importante, mas nagkakatulungan tayo, and there are other support na manggagaling sa Kongreso na kailangan din ng task force na they can move forward and they can implement properly and fight this COVID na slowly, sana maging normal na tayo. So yun lang. Maraming salamat, Majority Leader.
Our Deputy Speaker, maraming salamat sa pong mensahe niyo, at nakikita po talaga ninyo ang lahat po, our honorable guest speakers from the executive, particularly from the ILG, the PNP, and all the agencies, that your House of Representatives is here to assist you, to support you, to be partners with you. Kaya nagulat po kami sa inyo lahat. Kung anong kailangan niyo sa atin, we are here to work with you. As such, we shall now open the floor for some reactions, and some questions to our House leadership, and then to be followed by our friends and stakeholders in our media. And we would always like to start off with our most important minority floor leader, Congressman Benny Bishop Abante. Bishop, you have the floor.
Majority Leader Martin, maraming salamat po sa ating mga resource speakers ngayon. At gayon din po sa aking mga kasamahan sa Kongreso, maraming salamat po sa inyo. Alam ko po na tayong lahat sa gobyerno, ito man po ay executive, legislative, judiciary, ay talagang dapat po magkaisa at magkasundo para labanan po natin itong ating krisis ngayon. Nakikita po natin sa buong mundo na doon nga po sa Japan, until now, na napakatagal na panahon na, ay nasa state of emergency pa rin. Ano po? At kahit na po mayayamang bansa yan, marami pa rin kulang na mga gamit na hindi na provide ng Estado. Sa Singapore, pinakamataas na po sila, considering that they only have about 3 million in population, no? But they have more than 10,000. Second wave na po yan ng kanilang COVID-19. Ayaw po natin mangyari yan sa ating bansa. Kaya ako po yung nagagalak sa ating mga law enforcers, kay Secretary Anyo, kay Secretary Galvez, kay Chief Staff po natin, Ache Gamboa, at ating pong NCR Director, Eliazar, kaya din po ang ating Bucor Director na ginagawa po nila lahat ng magagawa nila upang maging panatag po ang taong bayan. Gusto ko pong unahin ang aking tanong o ang aking lang query. Gusto ko lang pong bigyan ng information si Director po ng NCR natin, si General Eliazar, sapagkat meron pong isang nangangalang Rexon Aumentado na nag-aaral ng engineering sa PUP na ngayon daw po allegedly ay dinitain sa police station number 8 ng Santa Mesa. Ito po ay isang constituent ko at ang sabi po dito ay ito po ay binanggit ng mga fellow scholar ng PUP. Ano po? Ang sinasabi po nila allegedly is now illegally detained. At ang violation daw po is RPC Article 172, falsification of document, RPC Article 151, disobedience and resistance, personal authority, and violation of RA 11332, yun po yung ating batas sa pinasa noong March 24, will be filed against Omentado. I just would like to inform, sapagkat hindi ko naman po nakausap yung station commander ng Station 8, ayaw na po natin itong maging humaba pat lumaki sapagkat in-inform na rin po ako ng Makabayan Block ng House of Representatives na ako po ang siyang nangunguna bilang minority leader. So I'd like to ask ang ating pong kagalang-galang na Director ng NCR, General Illasar, for any comment on this. Kung
Yes,
alam
sir.
po niya.
Thank you, Your Honor, sir. Actually, sir, I'm no longer the Regional Director of NCRPO. I'm now the Deputy Chief PNP for Operations and now the Joint Task Force COVID Shield Commander. But we will check on this, sir. As what you have said earlier, yung mga kaso, sir, na nabanggit nyo, falsification, and then disobedience. So we will check on the Station Commander so that we will know kung ano talaga, sir, ang nangyari. And we will give feedback to you accordingly, sir.
All right, thank you very much. So can you please inform me afterwards kung ano po nangyari dyan? Sapagkat yan po ay constituent ng dito.
We will, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. To Secretary Anyo, several days ago, narinig po natin yung pahayag ng ating Pangulo on religious conferences. Ano po? Nabanggit. And then nabanggit niyo po kanina yung mass gatherings. Okay, I just would like to ask, ano po ba ang kaibahan nitong religious conferences dito po sa mass gatherings? Ito po bang mass gatherings na ito ay kasama rin po dito ang religious services na ginaganap po natin tuwing Sunday?
Tama po yan, Kong Benny. Kasama po yung religious services sa tinatawag nating mass gatherings. At ito ay pinuprohibit sa ECQ at pati rin po sa GCQ. Pero habang tumatagal naman po ay magkakaroon tayo ng gradual adjustment. Ang kailangan lang naman po ay magawa muna natin yung tinatawag na minimum health standards and protocols. Katulad ng papapatupad ng physical distancing at saka wearing of mask. Kung naalala po ninyo, nung unang idineklara yung GCQ sa Metro Manila, ay hindi po natin pinagbawal yung religious services at sinabi po natin na mag-observe po ng physical distancing. In fact po, yung ating church, both Catholic, Christian at saka Iglesia, nag-propose nga sila na instead na, for example, yung pagsamba nila, gagawin nilang 3 beses para sigurado 1/3 lang ang 1/3 bawat services. So more than double the space, no? Parang naging 1/3 lang yung occupying niyang space. Pero bandang huli po, nag-decide din yung mga churches na mag-o-online mass na lang sila. At sumunod na rin yung pagdeklara natin ng ECQ at yun na yung sinunod nila na online services. So, pag po itong GCQ ay maipatupad natin at maisakatuparan na din o maiset na po yung minimal health standard, sa tingin ko naman pwede pong i-allow natin yung religious services. Basta susundin lang po yun at mayroong physical distancing.
Okay. Secretary Anyo, maliban sa ako po ay ang minority leader ng Kongreso, ako rin po ay isa sa pinaka-pangulo ng isa sa pinakamalaking evangelical o Baptist group sa buong bansa. And ako po yung nakakatanggap ng maraming mga reaksyon. Ano po, wala naman po sa aming grupo out of 6,000 churches buong Pilipinas ang siyang nagbabiolate ng ating mga guidelines. Kaya nga lang po, siguro ako'y nagpapasalamat po sa inyong sinabi na, you know, we provide leniency to churches like the police is providing maximum tolerance, ano po, to those churches that are following the guidelines of government. Tama po yung sinabi nyo. Meron po kaming iba't ibang services para ma-accommodate namin yung mga tao na wala po silang anumang live streaming whatsoever. Yung guideline po na ginawa namin for them is that kung wala po silang live streaming, yun lamang po mga malalapit sa kanilang simbahan ang pwedeng mag-service, but they must follow all the guidelines of the IATF. Yun po yung aking sinabi sa kanila at nagkaroon lang po sila ng konting agam-agam, no? Because they would like it to be clear sa kanila kung ano po ang gagawin nila while naniniwala po tayong lahat that we ought to abide by the guidelines of government. At ang isa, si pinakahuli, na magbabiolate ng guidelines ng gobyerno, yan po yung mga churches po natin, yung mga pastor po natin. Kaya nga po, lahat po ng pastor natin ngayon ay nasa kanilang mga bahay through live streaming. So balit, meron po tayong libo-libong mga churches na mga maliliit sa mga kanayunan, wala po silang live streaming. Wala po silang online. Wala na po silang services ngayon at kahit na po ang Roman Catholic Church umaangal na po sapagkat the only resources they have to maintain their buildings and services ay yung pong abuloy at offerings po ng mga members nila. Pag wala pong service ang isang maliit na simbahan, ang ginagawa po ng pastor, lumilibot po siya upang kolektahin ang mga voluntary offerings po ng mga membro. But ang problema po dito, Secretary Anyo, din po kay COP Staff Gamboa, kung wala po silang anumang pass to be able to travel para makuha po itong mga offerings na itong kailangan po nila sapagkat ang mga pastor natin they are not recipients of the social amelioration program. Hindi rin po sila recipient ng tupad o ng dole because they are not properly called employees. Ano po? And they are not properly called indigents. And the only way for them na magkaroon po sila ng konting resources para hindi mo magutom ang pamilya, kanila pong makuha ang mga voluntary offerings ng mga miyembro na tinatawagan po sila araw-araw. Pastor, hindi po pwede kami lumabas dyan. Nais namin po na kunin na lang ang offering dito sa bahay namin. Maaari po bang, meron po pa tayong maaaring gawin dito, Secretary Anyo o Chief Staff Gamboa, tungkol sa ilang mga bagay na ito, kapagkat ako po, I am against any of our pastors or any of our church workers na sila po ay kumuha pa ng ayuda ng gobyerno samantalang mayroon naman kami mga members na pwedeng mag-support po sa kanila. Yan po'y malaking tulong na po sa ating pamahalaan because thousands of them are not getting any support from the government whatsoever. Ano po ang ating magagawa dito?
Maraming salamat, Bishop.
Makikipag-ugnayan na lang po yung ating mga pastor sa ating JTF Shield kasi naman ito po ay tinatawag natin na isolated and case-to-case basis para po mabigyan sila ng temporary pass kung meron po silang aksyon na gagawin sa isang particular na araw. At nakakapag-adjust naman po yung ating JTF CB Shield under kay General Nesar. Mr. Chair, gusto ko lang po sana magpaalam. Meron po kasi kaming meeting sa Malacanang ngayong alauna. Pero po maiiwan po si Yusek Flores kung saan po ay I am going to authorize him to respond on behalf of the DILG.
Okay. Maraming salamat, Secretary. At this point, we will now begin the Q&A and reactions from our friends from the media.
I
Darren.
still have one question.
Hi. Bishop.
One more,
sige,
one more.
sige.
Okay. Ngayon, siguro pwede rin sagutin ito ng ating chief staff, no? Bago ko to go to the last question I have sa Bucor head po natin. Kaya kasi I'd like to inform our colleagues here that we more than 10 to 11,000 Baptist churches of any size. We are teaching our people never to ask for any support from government. That would be one of the help that we can give our government. Na hindi na po sila, wala po, yung mga churches po namin, walang member ng 4-piece yan. Wala po diyang member ng 4-piece. At because we believe that the Lord supplies our need through our ministries, wala po silang pupuntahang iba. Kaya nga po, sabi pa nga pastor naming iba, paano po yan, Bishop? We do not want to get any support from the government because we do not want that. Pero pag hindi kami makakuha ng aming offerings na binibigay po ng mga members namin, magugutom din po kami. So yun lang po ang gusto kong sabihin. If the chief of staff would like to react on that, na sinabi po ni Secretary Anyo that we could be able to get temporary pass. Magpapasalamat po ako sa bagong request na yan, pagkat napakahalaga po. So how do we go about the temporary pass, chief of staff?
Mr. Chair, Jerry Yasar po.
Yes,
hello,
please go.
Yes, Mr. Chair, opo. Well, una po, magbigay muna ako ng feedback mo kay Congressman Abante. I just talk over the phone sa ating pong Station Commander ng Station 8 ng Manila Police District na si Police Lieutenant Colonel Arlie Grijaldo. So yung pong insidente na about Rexon Aumentado na nahuli po noong April 25 last Saturday, 11 a.m. Yes. So sa isa pong Oplan Sita, siya po ay lumabas kasi nga po may instruction ng ating Chief PNP na paigtingin yung ating campaign against sa itong ating ECQ implementation. And siya po ay nakosyonan dahil nasa labas and then tinatanong yung kanyang identity kung saan siya pupunta. Ang pinakita niya po na quarantine pass actually po ay fake, isang falsified document. Scanned lang at walang pangalan. So kinosyo na lang siya na bumalik na lang at wag nang dumaan pa. Pero according to the station commander, nag-react po doon at hindi sumunod. Kaya nga po dahil doon sa kanyang pagiging arugante na pag-react na doon, kaya po the police in charge of that operation, hinuli na po siya instead na warning lang. So, ang mga kasong pinal sa kanya, just like what our good congressman has said earlier, yung violation po ng RA 172, use of a falsified document, then disobedience, which is RA 151, pati na rin po yung RA 11332. So, napile na po na inquest po siya and we're just waiting for the resolution ng kaso po para siya po ay makalabas. So, yun po yung feedback sa akin ng ating station commander ng Police Station 8 ng Manila Police District. Now, we will check on the condition po ng nitong suspect natin and kakausapin ko ulit po yung ating hepe mamaya. And as to your request po, naputol po kanina pero I've heard na this about your request for passage po for humanitarian consideration. So after this, I will just communicate with you. Our Director for Operations, Police Major General Ringo Licop, ay kasama po sa meeting natin and we will just get in touch with you para po ma-facilitate ito pong inyong request regarding that consideration. Thank you, Your Honor.
Unang-una, General LSR, I would like to request that if the station commander can give me a written report of the incident. Yes, hindi po ba?
Yes,
and
sir.
Pangalawa po, you can communicate with me because I can give the list of pastors that would need temporary passes. If you want, ako na po mismo ang mabibigay ng mga list ng pastors sa inyo so I could be able to monitor the situation further.
Yes, sir. We will do that, sir.
Thank you so much, Bishop. Thank you, General. Salamat.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Bishop, we have marami pang magtatanong sa media. So we'll go ahead
Okay,
first
okay.
with the media, no? So Darren, I understand that members of the media are already on standby. Can
That's
you
right.
please introduce them and tell them to be very straight to the point with their questions and to direct it to the resource persons that they wish to field the question. Maraming salamat po. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
First
Thank
up
you.
is we have Ms. Mara Cepedo of Rappler.
Okay.
Please go ahead,
Good-
ma'am.
All right. Good afternoon. I'd like to address my two questions to PNP Chief Archie Gamboa. Sir, for my first question, we understand that the Makati Police already filed a complaint against Dasmariñas Village resident Javier Parra. But I'd also like to ask if you think Senior Master Sergeant Roland Madrona's use of force was justified despite the suspect having a pre-existing spinal injury. And then second, sir, regarding your request to lawmakers, what specific amendments to the Bayanihan law are you asking from Congress to put more teeth into it and to help empower the police and in your duty to go after lockdown violators?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, on the force that has been applied in effecting the arrest. Nakita nyo naman siguro, Your Honors, kung gaano kalaki yung foreigner compared sa police force. But as a policeman, so really it will depend, no? Pero nakita nyo naman that he was able to subdue the suspect, pero medyo nahirapan siya, no? So based on the video, it is very clear that enough force was applied. Now, on the Bayanihan Act, I'm not requesting for an amendment, no, because actually, kung makita din natin, it has an effect of 3 months unless specifically extended by both houses of Congress. Ang inaano ko lang is probably just a comment if our interpretation of Republic Act 11332, which is the Pandemic Act enacted last year is squarely applicable, no? Kasi ang parang sinasabi ko, the main act or the main Republic Act that which we lean on our charges on ECQ violations is the Pandemic Act. Pero kasi sa batas or sa law na pag nag-aaral kami sinasabing subordinate legislation because when the Pandemic Act was enacted, they did not foresee, or it actually foresaw, no, that there's a pandemic that's going to happen. That's why they prepared the Pandemic Act. But it did not specifically see the kind of pandemic that would hit the country. But nevertheless, the legislators were prepared. However, syempre, pag gumawa ka naman ng batas, hindi naman siya ganun ka-specific, no? That's why we are now requesting, or I have actually requested the Department of Justice, because he's also a member of IATF, if we can use the Pandemic Act as a charge. No? As a matter of fact, my policemen are doing it already because, if I may, no, there's a provision in Section 3 which says response. No? Response is, it's the implementation of specific activities. No? Kaya ang interpretation ng PNP is yung specific activities to control the spread or to prevent from recurrence of the pandemic is actually the activities that are being stipulated by the IATF because the IATF, ginagawa niya yung different policy precisely para ma-prevent ito. So by reason of subordinate legislation, in relations to Section 9 of the same law, it says there that non-cooperations of persons or entities who would not cooperate, no, on the implementation of these specific activities. Kaya sinasabi namin na yung, kunwari, wearing of face mask, you can actually charge a person in relation to 11332 of not wearing face mask because by reason of subordinate legislation, ito yung sinabi ng IATF. So anyway, it's up for the different courts to appreciate on the cases that we filed against those who violated ECQ rules. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you for clarifying, sir.
Thank you, Mara. We have next is Mr. RG Cruz from ABS-CBN. Go ahead, RG.
Good afternoon, sirs. For the law enforcers present, for Secretary Anyo, if he's still there, there is a recommendation by one of our lawmakers earlier na dagdagan yung law enforcers habang ongoing itong community quarantine. Do you agree with the recommendation? And if you do, how many more law enforcers do you intend to deploy?
Okay, Mr. Chair, two things. Now, first is additional PNP. In the usual course of budget in the regular fiscal year, we are authorized to recruit 10,000, and then meron pa kaming 5,000 to 7,000 attrition. Yung mga nag-retire na optionally, yung mga nag-awol, so meron din sa kanilang replenishment. So it's around 15,000 to 17,000. But based on the deployment naman on available human resources that we have, meron kaming reserve force actually na inorganize sa national headquarters. And I've been asking the regional directors of NCR, to be specific, no, and also 3 and 4A, kung kailangan nila. Then palagi naman nilang sinasabi na hindi nila kailangan kasi they have so much human resources also. Like for example, for NCR, we have almost around 26,000 policemen in NCR. But nevertheless, we really wanted to replenish probably at para mabago naman yung perception. That's why we introduced the Special Action Force in the implementation of the law, no? Para makapagpahinga din yung a few of the NCR. And really, we really wanted na to impress the public na pag kayo nag-violate, after April 23 nga, sinabi namin na bawal na tayong makiusap. No? We will already file the case because for the past 36, 37 days, we have been very considerate na wina-warningan lang namin. No? Just like what happened yun sa sinabi ni General Alyasar, ang una naman kasi talaga ginagawa ng police is pakiusap. No? At yun nga, in relation to that, yung sinabi ko kanina sa revised penal code, once there is an overt act, no, of which already qualifies to the commitment of disobedience or disrespect, then in itself, yun ang nagiging basis for arrest. But nevertheless, the Philippine National Police has still enough forces to augment, no, if necessary, on affected areas, specifically Region 4A, yung Calabarzon, and the National Capital Region. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, RG. We have next is Miss Sian Arcangel from CNN. Go ahead po.
Hi po, good afternoon. Sian Arcangel from CNN Philippines. I'm addressing my question to Secretary Carlito Galvez. Sir, you mentioned that one of the goals na ngayon pong na-enhance yung quarantine is yung massive testing ng mga PUIs, PUMs, and frontliners. Sir, what challenges do you see? Kasi sir, ang sinabi niyo is target niyo po na magawa ito ng May 7. Sir, are our facilities enough to accomplish this, sir?
For now, nakita natin may coordination na kami sa Philippine National Red Cross. Ang capacity ng Red Cross is ranging from 8,000. We send 2 C-130 to pick up their automated extraction machine. Once we pick it up, it can increase our testing capacity to 12,000. For now, the RITM has the capacity of 2,800 to 6,000, and with the increased capacity of the Philippine National Red Cross, we are very confident that we can get the more or less the 15,000 targeted to be tested in NCR, because we believe that if we will be able to test the NCR and also the Region 3 and Region 4, 80% ng problem natin it will be solved. Because once we have conducted the massive testing, we were able to identify yung tinatawag nating future spreaders or tinatawag nating yung mga carriers. And if we are able to isolate them to the quarantine areas, we will be able to limit the spread. Yung tawag namin R0, yung R0 na reproduction capacity ng ang virus will become from 1.5 to 0.4. Pagka once na ang R0 ay bumaba ng 0.4, ibig sabihin nun, babagsak yung yung reproduction capacity ng virus, meaning we can prevent the virus from spreading exponentially. So yun, nakita namin, we are very confident, and we can sustain also this capacity by also testing the 16,000 OFWs now in the quarantine areas in Metro Manila, so that when we send them to their places, they are COVID-free.
Sir, another question. Cavite Governor John Vic Remulla said in a Facebook post na parang he's considering po na i-place yung province under lockdown. Is that possible po? Can he do that po, sir? Or paano po yung guidelines natin about that po?
Cavite is already under the ECQ, so meaning nandun siya sa kumbaga sa kasama pa rin siya sa lockdown. And yung tawag na strict restrictions of movement. And yung kung ano yung ginawa natin previously sa lockdown, it will still remain. Kasi ang Region 3, ang Region 4, at saka yung NCR will still remain to include yung mga tinatawag nating red area. So yung mga tinatawag nating geographically and sectorally risk areas.
Thank you po.
Daghang salamat po.
Thank you, Sian. Just two phone-in questions from Mr. Jill Resontok of DWIZ, addressed to Secretary Anyo, Secretary Galvez, and PNP Chief General Gamboa. Tanong po niya, prepared po ba ang PNP-AFP kung ituloy ni Duterte ang pag-declare ng Luzon martial law? May master plan po ba ang AFP-PNP sa implementation nito? Thank you.
I believe that question is directed to SND, and I'm not privy to answer that question.
Yes, sir. I'll just move on to the second question po. Still from Mr. Gilner Sontok of DWIZ, addressed to Speaker and Majo Romualdez. Majo, susuporta ho ba ang Congress sa Luzon-wide martial law kung ituloy ito ng Pangulo?
Well, whatever the executive decides, the House is always very, very responsive. No? So whatever initiatives that the executive, particularly our president, has, and that's why we are having this close relationship. No? Nag-ugnayan tayo dito. Hindi lang sa mga kapwa natin mga kongresista, but our valued resource persons, and of course, our very dear friends from the media, para magiging mas responsive, mas sensitive, and we can internalize all the issues and concerns of all. The whole concern of the House, and that is the mandate of Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano, is to bring the House closer to the people and to make sure that we are more effective working with the other branches of government. As it is today, the House is in partnership with the executive and with our law enforcers, with our men in uniform, with our chief implementer and our chief PNP, with our secretary of the DILG. So you can be assured that the government will be one in defeating this COVID together.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. No further questions from media. That is all.
Well, at this point, we're very, very happy, that we've been given the opportunity to share with each other the various points and the ideas that have emanated from the House. And napakaganda po ang mga exchanges galing po sa executive, particularly the DILG, and from our most honorable esteemed Chief PNP. We shall take it to heart, those queries, those recommendations on legislation, Chief. And before we break, I think I'd like to still give the opportunity to some of our esteemed colleagues in the House of Representatives. I believe Congressman Sharkey Palma has a number of questions from a number of our esteemed House leadership. This will be a very good opportunity, Kong Sharkey, to share with us some questions from our House leaders and reactions to the very, very comprehensive, very detailed, and very, very insightful reports of our resource speakers, as well as our co-chairs from the cluster. Kong Sharkey.
Thank you. Thank you, Majority Leader, sir. First, to our resource persons, good afternoon po sa ating lahat, and the members of the House who are also here in the meeting. Firstly, sir, I would like to address the question to Secretary Anyo, because majority of our members of the House would like to ask the same or similar question. Basically, Secretary Anyo, sir, the concern of our members pertain to the guidelines. If you could if the DALG could provide guidelines to the LGUs, especially in formulating their own respective ordinances. They need to have some sort of guidelines though, so that the different LGUs, especially the municipalities and the provinces, will have a form of guidelines that they follow, so that they can create a meaningful and in tune ordinances with that of the national policies, especially the ones that are being provided for us by the IATF. So maybe if you could, if the good secretary is still here, maybe he could answer these questions.
I believe his USEC is here.
Bernardo is here. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. If you can recognize me.
Yes, please, USEC Bernardo, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that answer. Now, we have been following the IATF guidelines, and from there, we also issue several guidelines, issuances. I think more than 10. These are more or less specific, and the LGUs can just cite all these issuances for them to also have their own guidelines, as well as in formulating their ordinances. And for as long as these are all aligned with our own issuances and IATF guidelines, then they can do so. Anyway, if there are some lapses, or if this is not aligned with our own guideline or the IATF, then we just remind them on what to do, and perhaps amend their own guidelines. So that is now the protocol that we are having, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Yusek. Yusek, just in case, for example, a certain municipality would reject a certain guidelines propounded by another LGU. Let's say, for example, a municipality creates an ordinance, and the province would, since under the local government code, they have the review powers of the ordinances. What if the province would, should I say, veto, or should I say, recommend that it will not be allowed because it does not conform to the IATF regulations? What would be the recourse of the municipality insofar as the DILG is concerned?
Yes, sir. We recognize the autonomy of the different LGUs, but just the same, we guide them on what to do. There are other underlying factors for them to consider. Number one is their neighboring municipalities or provinces, in the case of provinces. The reason why, for example, they cannot simply declare ECQ in their own municipalities or provinces unless this is cleared with the IATF, because this will affect also other neighboring provinces or cities or municipalities. So we just have to guide them, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yusek, another question from one of our members is there any way that we can finalize, or at least change our guidelines with respect to the penalties that are imposed by our law, especially that other municipalities and other LGUs are formulating ordinances which carries corresponding penalties to violators of the ordinances, and sometimes it does not conform with the Bayanihan Act, or most of the time it does not conform with the Bayanihan Hil Aswan Act, because the Bayanihan Hil Aswan Act only provided for a general penalty for violations of the community quarantine, but on most of occasions, the ordinances or the executive orders issued by the local chief executives sometimes go beyond the general penalties to the extent of having the violators in prison. May we get your feedback on this, sir?
Yes, sir. The LGUs can impose their own penalties, but of course this has to be aligned with the IATF guidelines. But I know they have more concerns in the respective LGUs. But primarily, I think for as long as this is not against our laws, then they can impose their respective penalties.
One last, sir, with regard to those stranded from different. Yes, sir. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you, Majo. One last question, Yusek Bernardo, sir. With regard to those stranded in different parts of the country, be it OFWs or other personnel or other persons that are stranded from other parts of the country, what is the, insofar as the LGUs are concerned, how do we address this problem? For instance, Yusek, in my province, we have previously we have resorted to a community quarantine, the extreme community quarantine. Therefore, people who were caught outside of the provinces, who were outside of the province of our province, was not permitted to enter. However, due to the change or the transition of our ECQ to GCQ, our local government units are requesting guidelines from the DILG on how to approach, especially that we are transitioning and we don't want influx or the exodus of our people coming in from different provinces, especially those that are coming from provinces with high incidence of COVID positive. So how do we approach this problem, Yusek?
Yeah, we have an existing protocol formulated by the IATF as regards the OFW. We are now imposing a 14-day mandatory quarantine in government facilities for our OFWs. But of course, they have to undergo other protocol inside the as they arrive the airport or the seaports. Now we impose a 14-day quarantine because we are not sure. Aside from the rapid test, we are not sure whether they acquired the virus inside the plane or along the way in coming home. So that is mandatory, and the virus may not even manifest for the first 5 days. So that is the reason why we impose a mandatory quarantine. Now, in case of returning individuals, for example, stranded students in Metro Manila, then who want to go back to their provinces, we will be giving a window, at least a week maybe, probably first week of May, for them to be able to return to their provinces. And the DOTR is in charge of this. They will be providing transportation. If the standard individuals are not able to have their own transportation, and this will be coordinated with the receiving LGUs. So that is the intent of the extended ECQ.
Sir, just one follow-up question. When you speak of the receiving LGUs, both to OFWs and the returning citizens or returning residents of the LGUs, when you speak of receiving LGUs, are you saying, sir, that this should be made by the LGU wherein this person resides, or does it mean that it has to be the provincial government?
Yes, sir. In the case of OFWs, the one in charge is OWA. They have to coordinate with the receiving LGUs for the temporary quarantine of these OFWs. Normally, it's here in Metro Manila, if not in Region 3 or Region 4 4A.
No, sir, I'm talking about the receiving when they are sent now from Metro Manila, when they are sent to their respective provinces.
Yes, that has to be coordinated also.
So it has to be either the province or the municipality or the city where they reside.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Majority Leader, sir, that's the most of the questions propounded by our members.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions from the media? Because I know the time is already 1:30 and a lot of us were baka nalipasan na yata ng gutom. Hindi yata naka-lunch, no? But in short and in sum, we would like to thank Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano for spearheading these technical working group meetings. Today, we were able to clarify the issues and problems encountered by the law enforcers in the overall disease mitigation plan and their role in ensuring that social amelioration interventions are efficiently implemented. I would like to extend my deepest appreciation to our resource persons who, despite their very hectic and busy schedules, have generously made time to attend our meeting today and apprise us all on the state of peace and order in the country, as well as the measures which will be implemented to ensure the safety and well-being of our citizens is protected. Thank you also to our co-chairpersons of the Peace and Order Response Cluster, Congressman Narciso Bong Bravo Jr., Congressman Raul Buboy Tupas, who have worked tirelessly to gather and discuss inputs from various congressional districts and to formulate recommendations that we sincerely hope will be considered by the government in enhancing both its mitigation measures and maintaining order in our communities during these difficult times. We take note too the recommendations of Congressman Bong Suntay, chairperson on the Committee on Human Rights, on how to ensure full protection of human rights during the enhanced community quarantine period. I likewise wish to acknowledge the participation of other leaders of the House of Representatives who patiently listened to and took all these inputs and insights in mind. Of course, that particularly led by the message of Congressman Deputy Speaker Ferdinand Hernandez and the like. And papasalamat din po kami sa patuloy at pagsubaybay ng media sa aming mga gawain at pagpupulong ukol sa laban ng bayan sa COVID-19. Sana po sa pamamagitan ng pagdalo ng mga kinatawan ng media sa pagpupulong na ito ay maliliwanagan ang taong bayan sa importansya at pagkalima sa mga patakaran at pinatutubag ng gobyerno. Let us all help and support our law enforcers and make their job easier. Let us take part in fighting COVID-19. Maraming pong salamat. Mabuhay po kayo lahat. And we shall now adjourn the meeting. Maraming salamat po to Secretary Anyo, to the DILG, to Chief PNP General Francisco Archie Gamboa, to our Secretary Carlito Galvez, to General Julio Eleazar, to Director Alan Iral. Maraming salamat po sa mga presentations, for your patience. We are your partners here and we support you, all your initiatives. Maraming po salamat sa serbisyo. Sana we will see each other soon under better conditions. But for the time being, we are all ready and willing to close ranks with you and to make sure that we win this war against COVID-19. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. We can adjourn the meeting. Thank you so much, Sec Gen, and to all, to the House leaders.
Thank you.
Very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Answers.
Thank you po.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.